Indecisive Cinema, episode 27. I'm Jeremy Knight.
And I'm Carlos Hernandez.
And we've got a little bit of air conditioning in the background because it's hot as fuck.
It's fucking balls
here
on.
in Texas.
Texas,
It's finally it's been kind. We've had pretty good weather up until this is now late April. We're recording this on
80 degrees.
April 28th, and yeah, I mean it's snowing in Chicago at the moment.
I was like, oh yeah.
So it's when I was there, it was
awesome.
70. No. When I was there, it was like normal.
Snowing. Oh,
yeah, and then the day I went home, my dad was up there at the same time. His flight got canceled because of the weather.
Oh shit. So you didn't get the snow, but it snowed when you went.
Unfortunately,
that would have been awesome, right?
I love being up there when it snows.
Man. I live up north when it snows.
I don't know if I'd want to live up there though, for the Chicago winters, but it's definitely fun when you're visiting and just hanging out.
Yeah, definitely.
But so what have you been up to?
Oh, well, since last time we spoke.
That was 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. I had my daughter's birthday last weekend, Emma. Went to see... Wait, didn't we talk about Shazam? I saw Shazam last week.
Oh, you hadn't seen it.
There we go. We
can
can talk about that. Goes right before our other film on the list.
Because I've already reviewed it. I really loved it.
And I agree with you. And I liked it a lot. So we saw Shazam. We had a nice little weekend running around, tearing it up. My youngest daughter is very humble, common. So we didn't go crazy. But we did have a lot of fun. We did a lot of things. I played... Here's an aside. I know we don't normally talk about these things, but you said you have a PlayStation 4, PS4.
I do.
And you have the Marvel Spider-Man game?
I have not bought it. So my PS4 is it's like the living room console, and so it gets used all the time.
Common, yeah.
And the other thing is I have one of the I don't have the PS4 Pro. It's like the original version.
Yeah.
And the Wi-Fi on it, even if you're hardwired, to install updates takes fucking forever.
Us too. It took about an hour.
And it's every time I want to play. No, for me, it's
really?
it'll even hardwired right into the router. It'll take especially because if I have multiple games to download, I don't know. It just takes. So I just don't use it very often because of the updates and I have to clear stuff off the hard drive every time I want to use a new game. It's just
we got the 1 terabyte for the holidays. And I played Spider-Man, Marvel Spider-Man.
It means terabyte.
Terabytes, guys. I know. I always say tetrabytes. But yeah, I played Marvel Spider-Man. That's friggin' amazing.
Yeah,
it's like watching another Spider-Man movie. It's amazing.
I heard it was great.
And JC's rocking that shit. So we actually got really far into the game on that one first day on Friday, April 8th, 19th. And it's just the cinematic pieces. It's like a movie, bro. I love it. But yeah, so I just had to throw that. So we did that, and then that was it. This whole week.
Talk on the microphone.
I'm sorry. This whole week, just
there he is.
Waiting until
he's back, folks.
Waiting until the Avengers return this Thursday.
Yeah, this has been a big weekend for movies in general because Avengers opened on Friday and Thursday.
Thursday it opened.
And I saw it Thursday night in Chicago at 2 a.m.
Oh, so you saw it in Chicago? That answered my question.
Yep, I know you asked me that.
2 a.m.
Well, yeah. So the problem. So a little thing about me, I don't like watching movies with just packed theater for several reasons. Some of it's just I don't mind having people in the theater. I enjoy that, especially for this kind of a movie with a big fan event.
Yeah.
My problem though is I hate when there's just a ton of kids, or it's or I have to sit next to two I'm crammed in between two people, and I'm sitting super close. So I usually I either go super late or I go to theaters that aren't as popular.
Yeah,
I try and avoid the crowds and whatnot. And everything was sold out for this fucking movie until
2 a.m. Yeah, I got
exactly.
You, bro.
And so 2 a.m. It's a 3-hour movie. I don't think the screen wasn't working, so it didn't start till 2:45 almost.
What? So what time you got out there? 5, 6 in the morning?
It was I got back around 6 o'clock. So.
And then when was your flight home?
My flight was at I had to leave for the airport at 10:30
in the morning.
But I had to go. I was going to breakfast with my grandfather and his brothers.
You're crazy.
Yeah, I got
Did you sleep that
I got
night?
2 hours of sleep, and then I got on the plane and got 2 more, and then I just passed out that next night and slept till and shot a wedding yesterday, and
brother.
Here we are today.
He's a machine, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I mean, I was having fun. It's not like I was working. It's not like I was working in Chicago. I was there hanging out, eating Portillos and stuffing my face with Illuminatis and watching shitty 80s horror films, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about too.
There's a particular franchise that Carlos doesn't know we're going to talk about yet, but it's nothing.
I'm
not
very
some
excited.
big surprise.
I'm very excited.
The main thing is I just want to talk about how it's changed since the 80s, and
Well,
I have a whole list of notes about the movies that I was watching, and just it's very different. So we'll get to that in a little bit.
All right, cool. Yeah,
But yeah, I'm trying to think. The other thing that we've forgotten in every episode is we need to let you guys know where to find us and how go and leave us some reviews. We're on pretty much every platform: iTunes, Spotify. Stitcher, all the things, all the places. So go on there if you listen on one of those platforms. Go on there and leave us a review. We'd greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
We're always looking to improve the show and give us ideas for things we can talk about or things we can
Comments.
do.
I like comments.
So so anyway, go on there and do that. Normally we open with like a little bit of news. I think the only real news worth talking about is that Avengers made a $1.2 billion
Opening weekend. It's record breaking. And I got a little tidbit that I got to throw at you to see what you think. But yeah, I saw that today, and I was like, that's record breaking. I mean, 1.2 billion in a weekend.
That's crazy.
That if Avengers Infinity War made 1.5 billion in its run, its entire run. This movie made that in a weekend.
That's what happens when you make good movies, though. Infinity War is great. And,
it's a great film.
And the way that it's a great way to set up another movie. So they did it. They've handled it really well. And
so here's a little piece of news. I don't know if Jeremy heard. We heard it yesterday morning. Me and Rhonda. And then I went online to investigate in case it wasn't just a clickbait. But you heard that Disney is looking at actors to fill in the shoes for the new Phase 4 of Marvel. So they're
hiring me.
That'd be awesome. I would love Jeremy to write and film.
Now we got to be very careful, though, because I don't want to spoil anything from the new game or the new movie.
No. This is
we're talking about casting and whatnot. We got to be
casting,
a little careful.
Yeah, so they're casting the X-Men now. They're trying to get the core characters. And I was kind of upset because I wanted them with Disney. I want them to start the right way and film it in continuity-wise. But Daniel Radcliffe has been in talks to play Wolverine.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I like
odd choice, but
I like it. But you
him.
love
He's
him in Swiss Army Man. You love them in
good.
Horns. Mm-hmm. I mean, Horns is another good movie he was in. I like when he typecast. Cause, he's trying to get away from Harry Pothead.
I think he has. I think he's been doing weird indie stuff that.
I agree with you. I feel that, but it's like, but then again,
maybe not to mainstream audiences.
That's what the mainstream people
saw.
Still say, "Who's that?" And I said, "Yeah, it's Harry Potter." Oh, Harry Potter, and I'm like, he's done other movies, and I love him. I love him. But yeah, so that's a little bit of news there. What do you think?
I don't know that I like that casting. Well, I like him, but for Wolverine though, that's kind of interesting.
Well, the character in the book is short.
Physically big enough though.
Well, but they said that because I don't know if you ever heard it. We didn't touch on this. Robert Pattinson is number 2 in line to be Batman in Matt Reeves' Batman.
That'd be interesting.
And they showed a picture of him cock diesel. He's training because he wants to be Batman.
That'd be cool.
So they showed him, and he's very big, like how Ben Affleck got big for Batman. So they said that they were talking about. They said that he's been Daniel Radcliffe has been hitting the gym because they've been hinting at it for over a month. And they showed a picture of him, and he's looking a little ripped. He's not cock diesel Wolverine style. But I see in another month or two, he would be physically fit. Plus, he's short, and the character of Wolverine's always been short. I hate that, even though I love Hugh Jackman, and so far he's the epitome of the character of Logan and Wolverine. But I'm just saying that he's always been tall, and that's in the comic book, Wolverine's always short, and that's why he makes up for his anger and blah, blah. But anyway, that's something I had to throw out there because I thought that'd
be interesting. I don't know how I feel about that.
How about Robert Pattinson as Batman?
I like Robert Pattinson in general, so I want him to get more
He's
stuff.
broken away from Edward. I give you that.
He's done a better job of it, I think.
Yes, and Good Times is still one of my favorite films.
Good Times is great. Yeah, he's got High Life is coming out. I can't wait to see that, but I don't know when the hell we'll be able to watch it.
Yeah, High Life.
Claire Denis' new movie, which is, that's one of the movies I'm most excited about.
Yeah,
High Life, Avengers has passed, so... that's fun. I don't know if I have a ton of thoughts on that. So,
not yet.
But it's kind of interesting. It's kind of when it comes to that kind of news, it's like until it's set in stone. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, we can go ahead and get on the movies because we got a lot to talk about today. We've got a few you're going to do Shazam, which is a new release, and then I've got a few movies to talk about and then we're going to get into discussing 80s horror and Avengers and Game of Thrones. We've got a lot of stuff on the agenda, so we're going to get to it. I'll let you start with Shazam, though.
Yeah, and I know Jeremy reviewed it on our last show. Just real quick, I went to see it with the kids, and I actually did like it. I think it had a nice balance of humor, drama. The only thing I didn't like was, this is just me, because, I'm a big nerd, comic book nerd. But the jokey stuff happens, and like Thor's Ragnarok, it's accepted. And then it gets really dramatic, and then you're getting into the story and the whole pathos
with his mom and stuff like that and all that.
And then also boom cuts back to his comedy blocks. I'm like, ugh. And it's I hated that the
tone's a little inconsistent.
Exactly, the tone's inconsistent. I like the ending. I like the whole, family, I mean, come on. I mean, I'm not going to spoil much, but you all know that not Captain Marvel, Shazam, has his family. He has his super family as well. And in this movie, he has his own orphan family, I guess you want to say, or his new family. And I like that they all come together and become these gods with him. And I thought it was really good. I just hated the end credit scene. They had a good end credit scene, which a lot of people were puzzled by because it's a very obscure character, the end credit scene. And then you wait till the end, and they have that like really quick jokey end credit, which I hated. I wish it was the other way around.
That was just the one where they're trying out, and they're like, it's like a found footage style,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's because the first one I remember is with in the cafeteria, right? That's the
Well,
first
no,
end credit scene.
that was cool.
Or is that the way the movie ends?
That's the way the movie ends. Then you
Okay.
have credits, and then it comes back with what's his name? The guy, the bad Mark Strong's character.
Oh, in the jail.
In the jail,
Yeah.
and then the little caterpillar you see early on when Shazam goes into the lair. Billy Batson before he becomes Shazam, you see it, and then after he gets to be Shazam, it's gone. He appears at the end, and I keep forgetting his name, and I know I was going to look it up, but that's a major bad guy for the early Shazam comic books, like in the 40s and 50s. So it should be interesting to see what they do with that. I was hoping it was black because I don't know if you noticed, Dwayne Johnson was like executive producer and all that stuff. Because
Shazam? I didn't know that.
Yeah, because he signed on to play Black Adam, who's like Shazam's nemesis, And I thought that would be the
I
ending.
like that a lot.
Yeah, you got it. Well, if you ever see these, you can go online and Google it. Somebody did like a nice composite of The Rock with Black Adam's costume, and it looks amazing. So I can't wait for that. But I did enjoy it. The kids enjoyed it. It was fun. It was sad at times. And it was good. It was entertaining. I did like that ending with Superman. Even though Henry Cavill quit, I thought for a second he might have just done it for the brief cameo. But that was cool.
They cut off his head.
They cut off his head. Yeah, and I was
That's
like,
That's a great gag. It's a great way to end it too.
So that's my Shazam.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a good breath of fresh air for
Yeah,
DC.
Yeah, I like that.
Like this is definitely the direction I want them to head in instead of, all the other shitty Justice League movies and stuff, because we just don't want those. I think they've tried and failed for the most part up until now.
Yeah, the DC universe.
So anyway, we can talk about one of the few like actual other than Shazam, one of the few actual new releases we have on the list today is called Slut in a Good Way. It's a small, I guess it's just an independent. They speak French, but I think it's set in Quebec in Canada, which is
French Canadians. Yeah,
exactly. So it's technically a Canadian film, but it's filmed in black and white. It's a story about I think three young girls, kind of post high school, early college, that they're kind of bored and they're looking to hook up with guys and stuff like that. And so they go and they work for a toy store for the kind of the summer leading into the fall. And in order to kind of like basically get laid, and all the people that work at this toy store are kind of like they start mingling with one another, and people start hooking up and stuff like that, and then as you would expect, things kind of go wrong. But it's handled in a way. So that's essentially the plot. There's not a whole lot of. It's just a bunch of characters that work at a toy store together. It's not like something, it's not some
clerks in a toy store.
Kind of, yeah. And it doesn't. Well, I would compare it, I have a whole page of notes here, but I would compare it more to kind of like a a Linklater. It's on my list somewhere. Where did I put it?
Dazed and Confused.
Yeah, like more like a Dazed and Confused, where it's like it's not very plot driven, but it's a movie about a bunch of characters that kind of hang out, and all these characters are really well written, and they all feel like real people, and so it's enjoyable just to watch their interactions, and they're like smart kids, but they're not like too smart for their own good. It's not like Superbad or something like that where they're too jokey or too like they feel like real people. And including like all the guys that work there, which this is told from the female perspective, but I think like all the characters not only get like the time that they deserve, but like they just, I don't know, like it feels like it treats the subject matter. I mean, this is a movie that's called Slut in a Good Way. It's definitely talking about the movie's, a lot of it's about sex and about kind of coming of age and stuff like that, and learning to figure out what you enjoy, and stuff like that. And that could be like all the guy characters in it, which they can be dicks at times, but I don't know. It handles the characters feel real, and it's really wonderful. And it's also like it's shot in black and white,
I'm
but
reading about it now. Yeah.
it's all like it's filmed with like all locked off shots, so it's like there's not a ton of like movement with the camera. It's like a lot of like rack focusing, and they'll like have characters move around in the frame and like refocus on certain characters as they talk, and it's really well put together, but like in a subtle way that's about midway through I started kind of catching that and was like, oh, this is even though it's like minimalist, it's really well directed and like well shot, even though it's not flashy. And so that was really impressive. It's also kind of a hazy look to it, that like a foggy, hazy, kind of cold look to it. That just it reminds me a lot of Francis Ha, not only because that's a black and white film, but even just like the way that movie's shot and the way that the characters act. And what I enjoy about Francis Ha is just that interaction between the characters and stuff like that. Yeah. You know, and there's I don't know, all the girls start kind of jokingly creating a fundraiser because like all of them start sleeping with one another. At some point, like everyone at the toy store has slept with everyone, and so all the girls go on sex strike, and they start raising money at the toy store for abstinence. And all the guys get super frustrated about it. It's just really delightful, fun coming of age movie that I had a really fucking good time with, and in fact I'm hard pressed this early in the year to say that it's one of my favorite films of the year. I'd be shocked if this fell off my top 10 list by the end of the year, because it's just I don't know, there's like delightful things, like they roll the credits over a bunch of people dancing to DDR, and like that's how they show the character names. The characters will step up and they'll show the character names, and they're all playing, they're all dancing on a DDR platform. It's just a really, I had a smile on my face. And it just, you know, there's about 9 characters in the film, and I just love the way they interact, and I know I've said that, but it builds this really unique kind of world. Like the toy store feels like a real place, and you wander throughout it as characters, you know, have scenes together, and I don't know, it feels lived in. And even like it's set around, like the end of the film set around Christmas time, and like this season plays a big role in this film, and like the way that, I don't know, they all have a Halloween party at one point, and then like a Christmas party, and it's just but it feels, I don't know, it just feels lived in a way that it's hard to describe it, but in the way that like Dazed and Confused is. And it's really great. And it's a small little movie, but with delightful characters, and I just had a really good time.
I definitely want to see that. It sounds really good. Where did you see it in theater?
I saw it in theaters at Draft House.
Oh, Draft House. So I always forget. It's gotta be the Draft House.
It only played for like a week, I think, but it was on their like recommended list for this year. So I mean, there's a pretty good, I have a pretty damn good top 3 right now, as far as like my top 10, because I always have like a revolving top 10 list, as you know. You know, I just add movies that I rank them as I watch them, and if I rewatch them, they get re-rated, and everything shifts along, and you know, by the end of the year, I eventually have a top 10 list, and usually a few honorable mentions. Like last year I had like 15 or something. It was ridiculous, but so we've got a good strong start to the year so far with you know, little titles like this, and you know, big stuff like Shazam and whatnot. So and Us, and you know, we got some. It's been a good year so far. So that's Slut in a good way.
I definitely want to check that out.
And then that pretty much concludes all of like our brand new releases. We're gonna I guess I'll do mid-90s real quick, which is another one that I had a really great time with. In fact, I have like 25 notes for this movie.
That's Jonah Hill's directorial.
Jonah Hill's directorial debut. I think he wrote and directed it. It's set. I think it's actually. It looks like it's set in Chicago, actually, because some of the characters have like Blackhawks jerseys and hats and stuff like that. But it was definitely filmed in California, and it looks like it was. That's what I was gonna say. It looks like California, so that was kind of odd. I don't know. I actually don't know which city the actual story takes place in or not. But it's about a young boy. He's probably like maybe 8 or 9. That maybe a little. No, he's probably like 11 or 12.
Yeah,
probably like early high school.
13.
And he's 13. Okay, that makes sense. And it's another kind of coming of age film. This is from A24.
It says mid-era Los Angeles, so I guess.
I think Los Angeles, it definitely looks, it's definitely filmed there, and it looks like it. It's all shot on like 16 millimeter film. It has this kind of unique aesthetic to it that really works in its favor. basically this young kid kind of lives with, it's like his mom and his older brother played by what's his face, Lucas Hedges. He's kind of like he's kind of an asshole. He wears like jewelry, like almost like a wannabe Eminem type, and he's kind of a poser, and he's like a tough guy, and like the film opens with him like his brother, the main character, like running into the hallway and like slamming against the wall, and the brother like tackles him, and just they start fighting and punching each other, and that's like the way this movie opens. And it has like this really kind of scrappy, like just ugly. I don't know. It's like it's set in the skating world, so like all the characters are like not well dressed or cleaned, and they all kind of they curse, and they just it's a group of friends that the main character is a 13-year-old boy who basically stumbles across these kids that are skateboarding and kind of falls into that group and kind of finds his place in this group of misfits. And which I mean, we've seen stuff like that before.
And I was gonna say I've heard it because one of my, I want to say my favorite film, but one of the films I discuss very much is Kids.
Yeah.
Larry Clark and Harmony Korine. And I was saying, how close to Kids is this? Because they compare it to Kids.
Well, I haven't seen Kids, so I don't know. Oh my
God, I keep forgetting you haven't seen that movie.
Yeah, I don't know. But okay, and so, ultimately, like, this movie's kind of low on plot. It's it's just about a bunch of kids that are hanging out. And at first, I wasn't sold on it for about the first act, because this, unlike Slut in a good way, the kids do feel a little too smart for their own good at times. Just some of the conversations they have don't feel like very realistic. Some of them do, but I do think by the end of the film, I think they really win you over. And there's a one of the main kids. Let me find his name. I have it written down here.
Sonny Soldier.
What's his name?
That's Stevie. Talking about Sono.
Where is? I wrote it down. God damn it! I'm sure I could look up the cast here in a second, but. The main, there's like one black guy or like
now Kel Smith.
Yeah, and he's just fantastic in this. I don't know if he's been in a whole lot else, but he has this great. I don't know. It's like this movie kind of. There's a point in this film where it becomes very real, like and not only in the way that the drama unfolds with the family, like in his brother, it gets kind of violent and self-destructive, and really that stuff works really well. There's a kind of a surprising emotional turn for these kids that I don't know, and there's a few kind of contrived plot devices, like there's a car crash in this that doesn't work, but ultimately it's just the kids kind of coming together and not only coming into their own, but also learning the value of friendship, which sounds so cheesy, but the film works. I don't know. It's also very funny. Like Gerard Carmichael shows up as this like rent-a-cop that like hassles the kids in the parking lot, and it just and some of it may be nostalgic. Like I grew up in the '90s. I wasn't 13 in the middle of the '90s. I was born in '94. So, but I did I played video games. I watched TV. Like a lot of the '90s culture was something that I experienced, and I also watched this in a place where I spent a lot of my time as a kid, when I was up in Chicago. And so there's definitely, you can take my opinion with a grain of salt, but I do think this movie works very well. And it's impressive to see like A24 put out, this is like the third or fourth coming of age movie, but they all have such unique perspectives. Like in the list I put down, it was like Lady Bird, Eighth Grade, Mid 90s, and Moonlight, all of which are so drastically different from one another, but are all really interesting. And it's just, it's really damn good. I was pleasantly surprised. It took me a long time to see it because I was just never in the mood to watch this.
Yeah, I've had it for a month and I've been dying to see it. Harmony. It says Harmony Korine.
He makes an appearance in it. I didn't recognize him, but I did see that. Now you need
to see Kids because I guess that was the nod to Kids.
Well, but Harmony Korine cast Jonah Hill and Beach Bum, so they may have been working together at the time.
Yeah, because this movie is getting comparisons to Kids, and that's why I've been dying to see it.
It's interesting.
I like I said, I like Kids. I don't love it, but I like it a lot. And from seeing this trailer, I was like, oh, it's like the Kids in L.A. And that's when the reviews came back. They were saying that. But definitely, I have it in my queue, and I think tonight that'll be...
Yeah, it's on Amazon right now, on Amazon Prime, not Prime. On Shudder or anything like that. So it's definitely, if you have Prime, it's worth watching.
I'm going to watch it tonight.
Trent Reznor does the score, which is kind of interesting. But it's definitely not like in line with what he normally does. It's more like there's a lot more piano and kind of ambiance. It's like almost like something like Radiohead would do.
Yeah.
I really like the score, too. So It's really solid. I was pleasantly surprised by it, and even though it's got good reviews, so it's worth watching if you get a chance. So that is mid '90s, and with that we can move on to '80s horror, we have. So Carlos saw Strangers Prey at Night, which will kind of lead off this whole discussion. So Strangers Prey at Night is the sequel to a pretty not acclaimed film, but kind of a cult hit.
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, Brian Bartolo.
It was early 2000s, right? Was it
It
2005?
came out in 2002. It was after 9/11. Hold on, let me just get it in here because I remember I was The Strangers. Here we go. Like 2000. What? 2008.
Is that late?
Because I remember I was hooked on Ain't It Cool News.
11 years ago, though.
That should tell you, that dates me. I already told you I'm 48. But I used to religiously go on Ain't It Cool News the first thing in the morning. And I remember them talking about this movie, saying, oh, they haven't released it yet. So that's why I think it was early 2000, because I think the movie was actually made in like 2004, 2005, but wasn't released until 2008. And I thought it was amazing. And it's Brian Bertino. That was his first film. And I remember feeling, when I finally saw it, it's not... traditional horror movie at all. It's very arty, and I mean, you remember. I think what it does, especially for me, who at the time I was a father, and I had children, it makes you feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because in this movie, it's not like once they come on screen, they're chasing you around the house. It's like they just literally their presence is like friggin'.
Well, and they're definitely in control, and the audience knows it, but the characters don't.
The characters do not, and I just thought Strangers was amazing, and
it's kind of a home invasion film, which in itself is kind of terrifying, but it's not in the same sense of like Panic Room or something like that, where it's it's definitely more we don't know what their intentions are, and they're definitely not good.
Exactly, I like you,
and they certainly turn out to not be that.
Yeah, and it's like, and then before we go into the newer film, I think the amazing line at the end of the film, which I think was in the tagline, I think was in trailers, was when Liv Tyler's character, asks him, why are you doing this? She plays Kristen McKay. And not Dollface, is it Dollface? Yeah, Dollface is the one who says, because you were home.
Yeah.
And that just hammered it home for me, because literally they opened up the door. And if they didn't open up the door, they might have lived. And cut to, 10 years later in Strangers Prey at Night, which I remember was supposed to be his follow-up, and instead he did like 10,000 other movies. Let me see his other, because I remember the other movie he did was a found footage film, like right after. What the name was it? And I liked it a lot.
Did he also direct the second one?
No, there it goes. No, he didn't. He produced it.
Oh, okay.
Mockingbird. Have you ever saw Mockingbird? That came out 6 years later, and it was a found footage film. And it was also
that with the clown.
Yeah, remember? And it was also creepy until the end. And then Monster, which I saw Monster, and I liked Monster. Monster was like a return to form. But yeah, he just produced Strangers Prey at Night, and I don't know if this is going to lead into what we're going to talk about. I think it does. So me and Glow love watching horror films together. It was something that I bonded with my mother growing up, and Glow now bonds with me. And there's a couple of jump scares. It wasn't as good, but what I liked, and I know you've seen it, you said, right?
Yeah. I saw it when it was in theaters.
And then this will be good for a debate now. When the young girl, the actress, forget her name.
The lead, basically.
The lead in the film, and I'll get her name because I always think she's cute. Bailey Madison, who plays Kinsey in the film.
What else has she been in?
She's been in a lot of kid movies. Like,
I need to look at the cast for this.
I'll look at her cast.
It's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah, she was in Just Go With It, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, Good Witch. She did a lot of like kid movies. I think Brothers was one of her more adult films, but Bridge Terabithia when she first came on the scene. But as I was saying, it was like when she finally gets no. The brother's one who gets the first one. The brother stabs the first one, and I was saying to Glow, I was like, at first I was like, oh my good, they finally got these guys, and after he stabs her once, she does the classic open my eyes, trying to come at you again until he stabs her a lot, and it doesn't. It's kind of cool that way, But when the lead actress Bailey Madison gets Dollface, you start seeing where they want to go with it, whereas they want to put them in, and which leads into the movie I was talking about last time, Bad Apples, in the Michael Myers, Jason, where they don't die.
Yeah.
And they go from being these, in the first film, something that can actually happen to you.
Sure, like normal people.
Exactly. To then
Well, there's
movie
a
monsters.
scene where there's a scene where the main bad guy like gets lit on fire and
yeah,
ran
the car
over.
blows up and he's getting
Yeah.
out. And I'm like, I'm like, we're laughing, but I'm kind of like, you know what? If they go this route, they could make a zillion Strangers movies
Sure.
and it'd be fine. It'll be nothing like the first one, which is an amazing masterpiece. But it was like, I actually kind of dug that they wanted to take this franchise, this film into a franchise where they can do it all the time. Because when she shoots the girl with the fucking shotgun in the chest, Dollface, she's just like smiling and doing a Joker smile. She has to do it again, point blank, to kill her, and then the guy is the one that we realize that, these people are not regular people. They're
or they're so pumped up on adrenaline and
I guess,
who
but
knows,
when you get blown up in a
meds.
car and he's driving and puts fire, and I was
so that's
like,
where I think the tension's deflated quite
yeah,
a bit.
and I know
The horror element
see,
of it
that's
definitely
where
becomes
it
more of a
makes it
traditional
different from
slasher.
yeah, exactly. Like, it's no more in the realm of what this first masterpiece, because I love The Strain. I think it's one of my top 10 horror films. And then you get this sequel that it's saying, hey guys, listen, 10 years later we're going to release a sequel, and guess what? Next year you'll see another one, and they're going to do the same shit. And
Well, this one bombed at the box office.
oh yeah,
so-
no, it did, but it doesn't matter, because I mean it's what, Universal, I think. So I mean,
Yeah, I don't
they'll
know.
still pump out shit like this. It was only like an hour and 25 minutes. We saw it like really quick.
Yeah, they were like, this is like in the Arrested Development episode where she's like, it's only 60 minutes long. It's like they're just like trimming down for the sake of. I mean, it's just it seemed like a movie that just got kind of shit out in the middle of like January or February.
It came out February, and it came out when Black Panther came out, so that was kind of like,
that's right.
So, but Black Panther dominated. For
Yeah,
like,
there's
until the
two
Avengers
things of
came out.
note in this film though. One of which is the only effective scene in my opinion, which is in the pool.
Yes,
I really like that. That was really stylish and
Stylish
like
stuff.
I like the shot where he turns around and the guy runs and it's like a wide shot from the other side of the pool and he
Yeah.
chases after him.
That
So
was right.
all that stuff's really fun and the score works really well there. My problem with it is it definitely falls into that category of like kind of almost like wannabe throwback 80s horror films.
Yeah,
Which can work.
Segue.
Well, like look at like Your Next, which is, and there's a
Another
particular
African
example. So there's a scene where I think it's the father or somebody, whoever crashes the car, and the guy, like the stranger, gets in the car with him, which reminds me of that scene in Your Next, which I think is brilliant, where he no, not the father. It's like the next door neighbor in Your Next.
No. I'm saying, but in Strangers, it's the father.
Oh, gotcha.
But in Next,
Gotcha,
it's the neighbor. Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And there's that scene in Your Next though where he like sits down on the couch, like puts the song on, the title song for the movie,
Which is
and then like sits
amazing.
down on the couch next to the person he just killed.
Yes.
Like that's a great moment.
It is.
And then
It's
you see Strangers, and it almost feels like it's like trying to do the same thing, and it's also doing the 80s throwback and the synth score and all this, and it's just kind of like, that's just. And then like it's also set in a trailer park, and like no one wakes up or like it's just the location doesn't really work either.
Well,
like I
so-
don't mind the location, but it just
no.
like it doesn't make any logical
My
sense.
my thought was this, and as what you're saying, either what happened in the first film, because remember they killed this family, they killed their family.
I mean, they could have killed everybody in the
that's
trailer
what I
park.
thought. I was telling, because Gloriana says, "Oh, maybe they killed everybody
one at a time.
And I'm like, "Yeah, it's a small little trailer park. What if they just went door to door to door, and then when
they
they got,
could've.
they just happened to get there at the wrong place, wrong time?
Certainly.
Man, could. But anyway, go on.
But yeah, there's a few minor complaints. I mean, overall, it's just not very effective.
Oh yeah, I mean, no, I mean, if you just want to have a little good fun, a couple of jump scares, definitely. I mean, I'm glad you bring up Your Next. I mean, if The Strangers I hold up on a pedestal, I think Your Next is like this, like an independent horror film that comes out of nowhere. Like an album that comes, you're like, oh, this album's really cool. Have you heard it?
Yeah,
That's
Your
what I
Next
like
is
about
great.
Your Next.
I love that movie.
Yeah, it's fresh, it's funny.
Yeah.
Whereas The Strangers is played straight.
Sure.
Your Next is played dark.
And that's what, and if Strangers had gone that far, it could have been more fun.
Yeah.
But it doesn't quite go there. It
Exactly,
takes itself a little too seriously for its own good. But anyway, that kind of segues us into this whole 80s. And it's not, so I have two, we watched like my Pearland friends and I got together and watched 2 of those, like, those box sets you can buy at Walmart in the bins, or they're like 6 movies for $3.50, and they're all worth about as much as you paid for. And one of them was Daughter of Darkness, which is it was a TV movie starring.
Then I know what you're talking about.
Anthony Perkins? Yeah.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. When I said to you, I said, "What's that?"
And what's interesting about it, this isn't really a review of this movie, because don't see this. It's well, first of all, like the premise is that Mia Sara, who is from Ferris Bueller, she plays this girl who's like searching for the father that like abandoned her as a child, and she ventures into this like where is it? What city is it? Or what? I think it's like it's Romanian. She goes to Romania to like try and find her like her origin, and she stumbles across this group of vampires basically that like rule this town, and it becomes very silly. And then when I tell you the plot, the title spoils what happens, so that's the other dumb thing about it. But it's just what's weird about it is like, it's an hour and a half, and it feels like a 3-hour movie. This was actually made in 1990, so it's right at the end of so it's not technically the 80s, but it's also directed by Stuart Gordon, who did Reanimator. And so it's just what's weird about it is like, when was this a thing? Like when like they would make like, I know that like Sci-Fi Channel makes like these really shitty TV movies and stuff like that, but back in the early 90s, like they gave Stuart Gordon. Showtime directed it. Interesting.
Yeah. There were movies for the champ. Remember, HBO was big in the 70s, Cinemax in the 80s, and then Showtime became big in the 90s, and they were doing like, that's what Robert Rodriguez did. Road Racers. They started getting young independent directors, a film, and that they showcased it every Saturday night, almost like a serial. I remember because I watched most of them. And I think Daughter of Darkness, that's why I think I remember this movie, because I remember seeing it on Showtime, and it was like Anthony Perkins, one of his last movies he ever made. So, before he died.
Yeah, it's not good. Don't watch it. It's one of those that we like wanted to watch as like a gag, and it just was not fun at all. And the same thing with we watched the next one was, where is it? Destined to Be Ingested, which is this just piece of garbage. Straight to VHS. I think that was like later though. That wasn't like 80s or 90s. I think that was probably like early 2000s. It looks like it was shot on video, and it's one of those where they like filmed the whole thing on a boat and then realized they didn't record audio, and then had to ADR the entire film. And it was really fun and terrible for about like 30 minutes, and then it's just like, and then it devolves into like the lead character running around in the woods for the next 30 minutes, and you're just like, we skipped through most of it. Just terrible, but
it's only an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah, but that box set.
The original title was called Holocaust.
Yeah, great. Destined to be ingested. But anyway, so that kind of led me. I was in the mood. So when I went to Chicago this way, I once my grandfather goes to bed at 8:00, I didn't really have access to a vehicle. There's not much to do in Roselle, Illinois. And so other than just going to eat food or whatever, and there's no movies out until Avengers came out. So I was like in the mood for schlock horror, and so I put on. So I started by watching Friday the 13th Part 5, and because I was like I want to watch garbage. I was like I'm just gonna start in the middle. I've seen it the first 3 I think of the Friday the 13th, and I've probably, they're not very good. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Part 3 3D is a masterpiece.
It was in 3D. Oh man.
Yeah.
That's the one in the barn, right? Yeah, that's the one with the bikers and the. I think that's the one in the barn. I believe.
Part 2 is one in the barn. Part 3, it's like really outdoors on the summer camp, and like he uses a harpoon.
Oh, you know what? It's in 3D, and I didn't know that. But I have a note about the fact that the title of the movie comes out of like Jason's mom's eyes.
That's
like,
Part 2. Whoa. That's Part 2.
Is it Part 2?
Part 2
no,
is when
it's
it comes
Part
out.
3.
Part 2 is when it comes out of the mother's eyes.
No, he has like the shrine of the mother, and it's like her decapitated head.
Yeah, that's Part 2.
Is it Part 2?
Yeah.
I don't know. I watched 5, then 4, then 3. So I watched them in backwards order.
Corey Feldman.
They're all bad. But what's interesting about it, so I have a whole page of notes about the fact that like, so what's weird about like the way that horror has evolved over the years, for the better, in my opinion, for the most part. There's things I like, but like, remember boobs in movies, like back in the 80s, where like
movies was about
all
that.
characters, like literally, like all of them were like, you know, hot dumb woman that like couldn't act and would like, I don't know, like they'll do scenes where they'll do an expository scene where they'll just be running, like jogging in the woods, like with no bra on, and you're just like, who the fuck allowed this to happen back in the 80s? It was just, you know, so sexist and just inappropriate, but especially looking at it nowadays. But and so I was watching one of them and was noticing just how bad the acting was. I was like, why is the acting, like for the budgets, why is the acting so bad? It's because boobs. Because they needed actresses that would be willing to take their top off. That, you know, and so they just didn't have actresses that were any good. But what's interesting though is like they're way more violent than like modern horror, because I think modern horror has taken a shift towards like PG-13 because they can sell more, obviously. And so it's fun. It was fun to see like back in the days, like how violent some of these movies could be. And most of all the characters were expendable. You know, so there was a ton of shitty kills where they just like stab them through a wall or something. But then there's occasional ones where like they like pop somebody's eye out, just and it's like I missed that, like where like, you know, horror was like it didn't take itself too seriously, and you know, so they would just bring 9 people to a cabin and, you know, slowly like split them, break them off. Like I'm gonna go outside for a second, you know. It totally, you know, but it also like what's interesting is, like there's no cell phones back then. So it's what's weird about it is like even like the plot of like going to a cabin in the woods and just hanging out with your friends. Like people still do that, but not at the same, like in horror films, you don't see that kind of thing anymore. Like, like the plots of horror films have evolved. And it's not just like I don't know, like I think it's part 4, I want to say, I forget which one it is, where like most of the movie is just them hanging out in a house. That's Jason, like, and they're all trying. And I think that's the one with Crispin Glover from. And it's so odd. And they're structured so differently, and the pacing is totally off. Like they're all bad. Like they're all so bad. I don't know, but it's fun. It's like I'd rather horror films nowadays just and there's a few exceptions, of course. Like there's been some great movies, but there's also just a lot of just garbage that's not even like schlock. Like it's like, I don't know, like Winchester, something like that, where you're just like, it's so dry and it's not violent, and it's not, there's nothing exciting or different, or at least with these movies, they were repeating the same cliches. But
I think we talked about this in one of our podcasts earlier. Like, hey, they rely more on jump scares now. But, you know, like I was going to say, I saw The Nun as well. Which that movie, I mean, granted, I love the whole Conjuring universe. I think that was literally a cash grab, you know, to buy some time or just to have a movie with that character in it. Literally, they really didn't go into the whole character of Dalek, but there was like 3 good, solid jump scares. But other than that, what was the movie about? I still don't get it. They went there to exorcise the nun demon, and they didn't even do that. It was kind of crazy. But I mean, I like that the end of the film. Finally, after we sat through an hour and 20 minutes of this movie, the end then goes perfectly back into the first Conjuring. And even though we know that the movie they're watching in the class, the original actor is edited out, and then the guy from The Nun is that character again, and then it like goes perfect. So now it's like how I like what James Wan does, where he wants you to watch these movies in some type of order. So now The Nun goes before the Conjuring. You know what I mean? Whereas Annabelle goes here, and then Annabelle Creation goes there. So, but anyway, it's like now they just rely on jump scares. There's no real, like you said, another big thing that's missing is gore. I mean, I was born in 71. Again, you know, we bring stuff, and I don't know if my mom listens to this, you're gonna kill me. My mom was a single mom, born in the 40s. You know, she took us to the movies because she wanted to see a movie. My mother loved horror film. So, like I said, my first horror film was The Omen when I was like 5 years old or 4 years old. And she literally took me to every friggin' horror movie. And we're talking about from the beginning of the Renaissance with the slasher craze, John Carpenter's Halloween, all the way up until, I guess, like the cheesy big movie stars in horror films. And from 79 to 1982, movies were just like gory. You know, you want to talk about the Italian horror films, which I think bled into the American horror film, where, like you said, eye gouging, or you know, people getting like cut open and seeing guts, or you know, seeing very violent kills.
Nowadays, the horrors change. Like, you don't even have slashers the way that you used to.
There's no slasher coming.
You know, back in the 80s, it was literally just a dude walking around with a machete. Like, that's really what the Friday the 13th movies are. And they're all just, like...
Freddy Krueger, too. The guy with knives on his hand.
At least those were creative. Like, these are just so lazy. I don't know. Like, he's either, like, grabbing through a window to kill somebody. Or what's also weird is, like, the amount of effort that he goes through just to, like, scare people. Like, he'll, like, hang a body by a rope and drop it out of a building. And so it's just so stupid. And there's no logic behind any of it, especially, like... I don't know, part 4 is called like Friday the 13th, the final chapter. The final chapter. And then there's a part 5, like the new beginning or whatever. And it's like, it's so bad. I don't know. Let me see what else did I have. Like, there's the one with like the kid. Do you remember? I think it's part 5?
The final chapter is with Corey
4.
Feldman.
Okay, that's the kid. 4, okay, gotcha. Sorry, I watched all these. I watched all these like, you know, back to back.
I saw these
while
when
playing
I was
Pokemon.
13. I saw it when it actually came out. So,
And like he like stops Jason by shaving his head, which is just one of the most cringy scenes I've seen in a long time.
It's like, I'm looking at it. He's not even freaking. Oh, there he goes. Corey Feldman.
The other thing that they kept doing.
In that one. That's what you were talking about.
Gotcha. Okay, is that the same movie? So
yeah,
Corey Feldman. Oh, okay.
That's they're hanging out in the cabin. They're just.
That's probably the most entertaining one though. Is part 4, I think. But then, like, they also, like, they started doing this thing several movies into Friday the 13th where they kept taking Jason's mask off.
Yeah.
And you're like, just stop, guys. Like, you know, it's like, that ruins, like, and he always looks like a terrible goblin. Like, he just looks ridiculous. And, I don't know, it's just, and then there's even, like, the cliches of, like, remember in Cabin in the Woods where they stop at that gas station, the guy, like, gives them the warning and it's, like, you know, it's setting up the cliche about how, like, there's always, like, somebody that warning the kids not to go. And there's literally a scene, I forget which movie it is in it, where there's this guy standing in the middle of the road and he, like, shows the kids an eyeball. And you're just like, it's so ridiculous. There's so many scenes in those movies that are just like, and I know that that's an effective way to do horror, which is where you show like bugs or spiders or like snakes and things that like make people uncomfortable to set up tension. And you know, there's things like that in a lot of horror films, but they were so obvious back then. And I mean, so it's like, I feel like horror it's not as good as it used to be. It's not as fun as it used to be, right?
Okay, yeah.
But I do think the filmmaking is trying more often than these were. Like, these were just like cash grabs. They knew they'd make money, and they just cast a bunch of, just shitty actors. And I don't know. It's just, it's interesting. And then they also, like, I love that the campground's always like a different set, like on every movie. Like, they just, I don't know. It's just, it's like, I just don't understand. Like, I think that's the worst franchise of the 80s.
The Friday 13.
I mean, Halloween gets really bad too, but those are probably the best.
I was gonna say, okay, you're saying that.
If I had to rank like the the main slashers, you had Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and Halloween. And you like Texas Chainsaw is kind of its own thing. I don't think that wasn't really.
And Chucky too. Chucky came at the tail end. Yeah.
I've only seen like the first Chucky. I don't think I've seen the rest of them.
And it's true. I mean, that was 87.
Yeah.
And then 89, and then it go into the 90s. But that also got kind of stupid. Hellraiser.
Oh, those got really bad. Yeah, Hellraiser's at least pretty creative.
Yeah, the first two are really good.
They're
bookends. Then I mean they start getting to stupidity. But I mean later on in the late 90s, early aughts,
Scream and stuff like that. But those are good ones. Scream is like, and that's probably my favorite. But that's the transition into like
because then you have
self-aware horror.
Correct. You get the slasher films. Then you get the gore films. And then you get these.
Well, it's really just all Wes Craven stuff, though, really, because Nightmare on Elm Street was kind of self-aware too.
Well, Nightmare, the new Nightmare, the one
that one's definitely actors. That one's a straight tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, that was why Kevin Williamson.
That's a great movie. I watched that recently.
Scream because he liked that aspect where Scream was the one that actually said, "Hey, here's the rules of a horror film." You know
exactly.
And that, I think Scream was a return to the horror film because after the '80s.
Well, those movies,
cheesy.
You couldn't.
Cared about
the reason Scream happened is because we had a decade or more of these really just
Kevin
terrible.
Was, like my age. He grew up watching them. And he wrote a script, and there you go. But that also died out too. By 2005, the Renaissance, the new Renaissance died.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until like now with James Wan, the Conjuring universe, where horror film came back, stylized, and when now you get these universes, and it's called the Conjuring universe. But again, like I have a love for it because I grew up with it. I saw these films in theaters as a child.
Sure.
Unfortunately. And watched them on late night on Cinemax and HBO, and then going to the movies, see Scream, and so I even though you're right, I mean horror films just tend to be, it starts to recycle itself and then dies, then comes back, and then that recycles whatever that brought it back, and then that dies. So.
Well, even like the Conjuring, or like I guess you could say like Paranormal Activity was probably like,
like the found footage film, Blair Witch, Paranormal Activity.
I'm so glad we're done with those. that was kind of the start of that, and then the Conjuring came back with, that was one of the kind of the transition into more slick,
stylized, and then based on true stories that actually were kind of true. You can go read about them.
But now we've got like Happy Death Day, which is almost returning to kind of
the cheese,
like,
but I think again like tongue in cheek, where it knows it's cheese. You know what I mean? And like I said, I know you reviewed Death Day 2, which I still haven't seen. But I loved part 1. I thought it was a nice little fun movie. We laughed, we enjoyed it. So. Yeah,
but then there's movies like the Hole in the Ground, which I reviewed, that are like they're not great, but they're taken seriously. So you still have, and that I don't know. It's just, I feel like it's definitely transitioning towards at least the good stuff is coming from the independent world.
Independent, yes, yes.
It's not like most of the studio produced stuff is like the Conjuring series and all that shit, and we're very tired of all that. So I don't know. It's interesting. It was kind of cool to go in a time capsule back to the 80s to watch a bunch of these. I also watched like Sleepaway Camp 1.
Oh, one of my favorite movies of all time. That's had a great ending. You ever saw it before?
No, I'd never seen it.
And were you shocked at that ending?
That was fun.
That was amazing. I love that ending. I remember when I saw that in the theaters, I was like, what the hell's going on? I didn't even get it. My mother had explained it to me.
There's like 3 or 4 of those too, aren't there?
Sleepaway Camp went up to number 4, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. But yeah, I'll probably continue watching those too. It's enjoyable to watch something that's so different from what we have now.
Yeah.
And they're not great, but they're at least entertaining.
They're not Leprechaun.
That's true. Leprechaun in the Hood is my favorite.
In the Hood.
But anyway, that's pretty much all we got today, other than the most important thing. So, I guess let's do Avengers. Let's talk about Endgame.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, we're just going right into spoilers. So if you haven't seen Avengers, you know what to do. Turn the podcast off. Go see it when you can.
Yeah.
And come back and join us for our spoiler discussion.
So, you want to go first? You want me to go first?
It don't matter. You do the plot.
So I watched Infinity War last night, so I was like nice and fresh. But anyway, as we talked about Infinity War many times. The Avengers go up against Thanos. Thanos gets the Infinity Gauntlet, does a snap, and 50% of the world population disappears for good intentions. I was arguing with my nephew yesterday about how good intentions Thanos was, but this film takes up. Actually, and this might be a spoiler. We're going to spoil it.
We're on spoilers.
It starts off exactly almost where it left off.
Yeah, with the opening scene is with
21
Hawkeye.
days, 22 days later, 21 days later, according to Iron Man's log.
Well, it opens though with the Hawkeye thing. With Hawkeye
it opens
disappearing.
It opens.
His family disappearing.
Who's? Hawkeye, yeah.
Yes. I thought that was just the reason I brought it up is I wanted to talk about it, how great it is. I think it's a great opening.
It is amazing. And so you get that opening, so then we're fresh. Tony does his log 21 days later.
They run out of fuel.
He's dying on his spaceship. And then Captain Marvel comes in. They go and
no surprise there.
There was no surprise. You knew she was coming.
Yeah.
She goes. She saves Tony. I was crying. I cried at the beginning. Cried here. Saves Tony.
Carlos just cried throughout the.
I did, except for the part where Thor came in, and then I laughed. So then you get that. Iron Man's very angry. He's self-loathing. He's upset at himself. Cut to 5 years later. The world is getting along 5 years later after the snap.
Well, first though, it's they go and they murder Thanos. They behead him, which is.
So I guess we're just diving in. So if you want to break down the film,
let's
start off the beginning. That was an amazing opening.
That was a great opening.
Hawkeye, Kelly Bishop, Hawkeye, the second Hawkeye that comes later.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, you've already seen it, so you know the plot. Yeah, so we're just gonna talk about I think we just break it down like
Yeah,
a
yeah, so let's
review,
do
like a
it, let's do
recap
it.
and a review.
I'll do it. I don't care. So yeah, so we get Hawkeye. So what I know you love it. Is
Well, what I love about it, and so not only does it give us an idea of where we're at,
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of a heartbreaking, like
Yes.
devastating.
Yes.
Like I think of all the snaps, right? Other than or the people dying because of the snaps, other than like Groot, you know, and Rocket Raccoon,
Spider-Man.
like Spider-Man. Yeah,
That
there
was
were a
amazing.
couple. Really,
That's
Spider-Man's
the
probably the
one.
best,
Yeah,
but
the best one. Yeah.
but this was really good. I don't know, and I felt like it got us right back in where we were.
Exactly,
So I think that's
yeah.
why it's such a perfect opening, and it fills us in on what Hawkeye was what
Hawkeye was
happened to
doing.
him.
Yeah. It's the weight of the snap. You know, he.
Now, when did he? And this is just because I haven't seen
He wasn't
Civil
in
War.
Infinity War.
Well, he was in prison for a while too, right?
Yeah, well,
After Civil
yeah,
War.
well, they did. They all got pardoned because Ant-Man got pardoned too. Remember, Ant-Man had the little tracker.
Okay.
And in the beginning, when he's showing his daughter, you see his tracker
Have
too.
we
So,
seen Hawkeye between Civil War and?
No, he was
Okay.
absent, as was Ant-Man from Infinity War, and this gives you what he was doing,
Gotcha.
which was at the end of Age of Ultron, where he says, "I just want to be a family man. I
Yeah.
want to be a father to my children," and it opens that way. They're having like a little picnic outside on the farm, and he's teaching his daughter, the Hawkeye later on, but that'll be Phase 4. He's teaching her how to shoot. And, you know, wife distracts him. He turns around. He goes, all right, turns back to his daughter. Then she's snapped. And then but he doesn't see that. So he just sees the dust, which I was like, where's this dust come from? Then he turns around and again, we see dust again. And then you see a father frantically saying, what the fuck's going on? And then cut to, you know, Avengers.
It gave me chills too.
Dude, I'm a father, so.
And it's not only just such a personal. What's so weird about it is like, you know, it's one thing to watch like a bunch of superheroes pass away because you know they're coming back and whatnot. But like there was just something so horrific about it. And I don't know, it's just like it hit me harder than I expected. That scene, it was really good. And you know, the moment that you see he turns around and she's gone, you know exactly what happens. But the character doesn't. And there's a moment of panic that is very, I don't know, kind of like when we were talking about Pet Sematary last week, and that moment of when the one moment in that movie that I think works is when what's his name? I forgot the lead character, when he sees that the kid running into the road, and there's that moment of kind of panic. The same thing happens here where, you know, we can relate to that.
Exactly.
If you have a soul, you know, and so that is a great way to open it.
Yeah, it was an amazing
got
opening.
us right, got me right in at least, and then they go and they fucking decapitate Thanos. First they have kind of the discussion about
No, first it's Iron Man. And then
Iron Man. Okay,
Iron Man's farewell to Pepper Potts. He's recording his death. What I love, and oh my god, the subtle gestures of Nebula, like, you know, putting her hand on him because you know she's mechanical, she's not going to die. She doesn't need. He goes to give her food, and she's like, no, you know, take it. And I just got chills. I was like, oh my god, Nebula started out as this monster robot killer, and she's a human. She became human, and you know, Tony, and I want to talk about that too afterward. But you know, Tony's just like, you know, goes, puts down, and you know, he lays down, and then, you know, he gets saved. But wait, so it's Tony? Yeah, Tony is second. But then we cut to when we go back where Captain Marvel saves him, brings him back.
I think there's a scene. We don't need to go through every scene.
No.
I don't know that I can remember.
What I like is he was emaciated. Like he was so like
he's
bones.
real thin.
And I was like, oh my god, did they do that CGI?
I don't
or
know.
what?
It's kind of interesting.
And then we get to the Thor. That whole scene when they get back to Thanos, I thought it was amazing because it officially tells you it's over. You know, there ain't no more stones.
And for some reason I had not anticipated that they would get there so quickly. Like I didn't, and then let alone decapitate him the way they did.
Yeah,
like
and
that
they
was
cut his head off, and I was like,
that was a great moment.
It was an amazing moment, and you know, you see their faces, and they're like, oh shit, yeah, the snap happened, and it ain't going back. And then 5. This is years later. I thought that was cool. So then, yeah, like I said, skip. 5 years later, everyone's doing the thing. Cap
see where Cap is. Yeah,
Cap is, you know, he's leading support groups for people who are trying to live after the snap. He comes in on Black Widow, who's getting updates from everybody, which kind of shocked me because.
What was the whole earthquake thing? Red Letter Media was talking about that.
And my boy Blue told me about it today, and I didn't put one and one together. They were talking about Submariner for the Fantastic Four.
Oh, really?
Because they said an earthquake on the ground. She goes, well, are you looking into that? She goes, we don't look into the underground water. The underground water takes care of itself. And then I was like, that was kind of cryptic that she said that. And then
seemed a little
my nephew,
throwaway.
my boy Blue Colin, called me. She goes, He's like, oh, I like that little Submariner reference. I said, where? And he goes, oh, with okay way, and talking about the earthquake on the waters. He says that it handles itself, and I was like, oh my God, there's your Fantastic Four allude.
And it feels like a throwaway line, but that whole thing felt a little like they like covered it up, like they were like getting through it so that you could.
Because
it's
Namor rules the seas, and that's his domain. And it's funny because Black Panther, I was just reading a comic book somebody sent me, my cousin Greg, and it was all about how Black Panther and Submariner have this whole long dialogue before the Civil War in the comic books, not in the movie. And he tells him, he's like, I respect you because you got Wakanda down, and I got Atlantis down, and we're the only two really rulers of anything, And I thought that was funny that she said that. And then when my nephew brought it up, I said, oh, shit, it makes sense because Fantastic Four, which we said you want to talk about
is available in the MCU.
Yeah, and that's going to lead into...
Does Disney own all the rights to that? Or is it kind of like with Spider-Man where they...
No, they have 20th Century Fox had the Fantastic Four rights.
Gotcha.
And so Submariner is all Fantastic Four up and down.
So that's got to be the crucial part of this next phase of
I'll read it. I guess we did.
Let's get into that next week though. Okay, if we have time.
All right.
But I think that'd be a good way to open next week, so we can talk about that because technically that news came out after we started.
Yes. All right. We'll talk about nothing. But so
I'm interested in that though.
You had that, and so Natalie, Black Widow, can't move on. She's still trying to find a way to do something, and Cap tries to talk her.
Which is another great moment.
Yeah, and it's
one of the best things about this film, in my opinion, is that we get time with all the characters, and we know where they're at. We know, we know what their goals and motivations are for every decision they make.
Yes.
Like it feels like a really well. And there's moments in this that I think are a little clunky, but I think overall, I don't know. Some of the best stuff in this movie is the quiet stuff.
Quiet, yeah.
So the moment like that where he walks in, Cap walks in on Black Widow, she's crying, and she says, "Was that?" I forgot what the line is, but it's just a nice kind of tender moment between coworkers, basically. And I don't know. It was
very
little
subtle.
quiet moments.
It worked, and then cut to a rat who causes
a
chain of events who turns on the machine. That's what. And Ant-Man comes back, and then when Ant-Man comes back, we have that moment of hope where
I don't know, like how did they? What? It's in a junkyard or something though. Like the bus.
I guess they moved everything to a warehouse.
It's like nobody saw the whole all the electronics in the dash and stuff like that. Like nobody thought that was a little suspicious.
I guess not.
Yeah, but, there's some moments of clunkiness in this like that, but hey.
So he comes back. We have a way to go back into the quantum realm. They all go. Oh, and then we have the Ronin. We have that little thing with her on War Machine to talk about in Mexico and the murdering of the cartel.
So was that okay?
Go on.
Yeah, that's another thing that Well, I'm sure we'll get into it, but for some reason, I thought they were talking about Clint or something. Was that what it was?
That's what they're talking about.
I thought he was in Japan or something like that.
No, remember, she gets a report from Rocket. She gets a report from Captain Marvel.
Okay.
And then he stays behind, and then he gives her the report on Clint, on Ronin. And, they don't say any of that yet. But he was like, I don't think you go. She goes, what do we do if we find him? And she was like, well, bring him in. And he's like, I don't think you want him, because he's already gone so far in the 5 years to become this character in the comic book, which was for about two good years of Ronin, who that's what Hawkeye becomes. Because, and this is something I had this conversation with my sister and my nephew yesterday. She was like, oh, well, it was a random snap. And that's the thing, because it wasn't random, because he left them there to deal with with how they fucked up. So it's all in the mind, and we find that out later too at the end. But I'm saying that it's like it bothered Clint that his family was taken from him, but all these fucking pieces of shit are still around. And that's why his thing was like, all right, you want to snap? I'll snap my.
That's the one piece of character stuff in this movie that there's a few, like I said, a few clunky moments, but that was one that I didn't quite. Not that maybe the way that this movie's got so much stuff going on, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
And so it may have just been that it was like I glazed over when they, But I think it was also that it was in Mexico and then he was in Japan.
Because he says a room of cartels.
And I don't know who Ronin is. I never heard that.
And so and again, real quick, me, Marvel Universe, but it happens during Secret Invasion. Hawkeye again during the whole Civil War goes away. A year later, we hear of this masked ninja running around with Elektra, and his name is Ronin. And there was a cool looking character, cool costume, cool mask, And at the end of the Secret Invasion, or the beginning of the Secret Invasion storyline, when we find out Elektra's a Skrull, they find out that Ronan is Hawkeye, and he pulls off his mask and like, holy shit, it's Clint.
Gotcha.
And so that character was brought in for this film.
Even like what you just described, which is the fact that he was frustrated that all these pieces of shit were still alive.
Yeah.
Did he say something like that in the movie? I never felt like that motivation. I mean, I understood. Like, I can connect the dots.
I'm trying to remember the line because when he said it, I remember I go to Ron, I was like, yep. He says something like.
Because that makes a lot more sense to me
She's like,
than
why
what
are you
I felt
killing
like
them?
in the
It's
movie.
not going to bring them back. Not going to bring your family back.
Yeah.
And he says a line there like, then what.
Yeah.
But it was like that's basically what he's doing. He's like going around. If Thanos felt like these are the people who stay and inherit his utopian fucking society, bullshit, and I'm gonna keep snapping for you and taking care of these people.
I felt like that could have
was amazing.
That would have made more sense if I felt like they could have fleshed that out a little bit more. But that's a minor.
You're right,
complaint.
but that's what
because I definitely felt a little lost with that whole bit.
Yeah.
But it may also just be my lack of knowledge of the comics.
So Ronan's Ronan. They got to get the whole band back together. As we know that Hulk now in the whole 5 years learned how to control or meld the Hulk with Bruce Banner. In the comic book, it's called Professor Hulk. In this thing, it's just Bruce Banner and Hulk together.
Which also seems, for people like myself that don't know anything about the comics, that felt a little out of place as well.
But he says it. He says that he was working on it. He felt like,
But we're talking about one movie late. I know it's 5 years, but it's kind of like, oh, okay. So now we're here,
But it is mentioned in the film that he felt like he wanted to because remember in Infinity War.
It's good for him. It makes sense.
Yeah, in Infinity War, that was his mental block that he couldn't become the Hulk. So at the end of Infinity War, he wasn't really part of the fight. And that weighed on him, so he then found a way in 5 years to become Professor Hulk or Bruce Banner and Hulk together, Hulk with a brain. And that's cool. I wanted that in the movie too. I heard rumors. So he was there, and it worked perfect because he ends up helping them as Hulk, even though that was funny when they go back. But anyway. So they get everyone back together. They get Tony on board because Tony cracks the code. Even though
in a night,
and he sits over, and then that's the big
just
reveal.
one night later.
I know, right?
Speaking of, by the way, me and my friend were talking about that at the wedding yesterday. There's that line where I think Tony says something along the lines of like, "Yeah, I already knew that," or something like that about like the way that the quantum realm could be used to time travel.
Yeah.
And it's like I couldn't tell if that was a throwaway line. Like as like I didn't know that, but I'm an asshole, so I'm going to say that I knew that, or if he genuinely already knew that technology was around.
I think that's what he's been doing in 5 years. He's been thinking of every friggin' scenario how to do something back.
Okay.
And I think that's something he went over, but.
And this movie doesn't have time to get into, it's like even the Hawkeye thing. Like it's hard to complain about that kind of stuff because this movie has 40 characters and they're trying to, and I think they're balancing. That was one of the things that we were talking about yesterday. It's like I just think I've been so impressed with the way that they've handled the Russo brothers have handled not only Civil War and all these movies and just dividing the characters up per scene so there's not 7 or 8 people in one room at once and it just makes everything a lot more structurally sound and it's impressive. So
and I agree.
Anyway,
it's almost like Joss.
Just to contradict
like
my
Joss
complaints.
Whedon in the Avengers, because Joss Whedon came from Buffy, and Buffy is one of the greatest shows because the ensemble is so perfect, and I think that's why they hired him for that. But I think the Russo brothers with Infinity War, and then now with this movie that has over 50 million characters, it was a perfect balance.
It's really well directed and really well written as well. I mean, the script is great.
And then I know we're going to lead into what you probably didn't dig because I know Colin, my boy Blue, hated this aspect. Then we get Thor. We have to get Thor back into the band. And I know you love the Big Lebowski references.
The Big Thorbowski.
And then when he wore the sweater, that clinched it for me. I loved it.
Yeah, that was great. So well, I think it's weird because it's like you almost wish they could like reverse it because he's definitely less badass, and Thor's a badass character.
Yes.
He's one of my favorite characters, I think, since the Ragnarok and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think what was great about it was there's just these moments of like seriousness, and you see Thor in the background, and it's not even intended to be a gag, but the fact that he's fat is funny at times where it shouldn't be, and that made for a really interesting, unique experience. So and I'm also really glad that Korg is back.
Korg.
That's all.
Oh my god, me and my daughter.
That made my heart.
Korg.
That he might be my favorite character in
Korg is
in the
hands
Marvel
down
MCU.
one of my favorite characters in the Marvel U. And he's just chilling playing his video games. And he's just chilling with the guys. I loved that whole scene, and,
Yep,
and I know
that
some
was
people
great.
don't like the comedy, how strong it comes on.
I get it, but
it's amazing because it brought me out of this like so depressed opening of a film, and then when we hit the hour mark, we get Thor, and I'm like, oh my god, this is such a breath of
Thor.
fresh air.
Yeah.
And he's got the belly, and they call him Big Lebowski, and then the next time we see him, he literally has a sweater on, and I was like, oh my god, this is pure genius. So
yeah, I liked all that.
yeah, I knew you did.
There's definitely moments though where you wish that he didn't look like that for the sake of like the action and whatnot, but at the same time, it's a minor. I'm glad that he's going to be in Guardians.
Oh yeah,
I'm very happy about
he's
that.
jumping the gun. But yeah, so then we get the band back together. We get everyone going to do it. Now I'll say a few things I hated. Well, I don't want to say I hated. I wanted Cap to do the Soul Stone. It's just that now, after seeing the scene, I understand why not, because Cap never gets to confront the Red Skull after the first film. But I thought that scene was amazingly, like, heartbreaking, but also comedic. Them fighting to who would sacrifice themselves. In the Soul Stone. That was
interesting.
That was good. And the other thing I loved about this was, like, you know, the whole movie rules, Back to the Future, and they throw out all those jokes about how to do it.
Hulk says something like, don't worry about all that stuff.
And it's like they literally do exactly what not to do, and they all fuck up their missions because it's completely hard to pull off something like that, you know. The whole bag, you can't run into yourself in Back to the Future 2. And what happens, Cap comes against Cap. I thought that was amazing.
That was great.
And here's the thing.
So the second act, that's my favorite. Yeah, this is my favorite chunk of the movie. Actually,
yes, when they go back in time. And here's the thing, a tidbit. Let me tell you, like one of the. Okay, so about 3 years ago, I think it was 3 or 2 years ago, they Marvel Comics had to do something with Cap. You know, they already put him to his brink, and then they did the whole thing with Hydra. And you saw it in Winter Soldier, but when Winter Soldier came out, the comic book was going on about it, and they made Cap part of Hydra, and it was a long, convoluted 1 year storyline, and I kind of liked it, but I hated seeing Cap become this evil Nazi Trump-like character.
Out of character.
And but then in the movie though, because the whole big reveal in the first issue, this story with Nick Spencer, at the end he turns to Dr. Svelling and says, "Hail Hydra," and it's a shocking moment because you're like, "What the fuck did he just say?" So I thought it was amazing that at this point we think that we're going to see a repeat of the Winter Soldier scene in the elevator.
Yeah.
And they ended up doing it perfectly by him just saying in his ear, "Hail Hydra."
Yep.
And I was like, oh my God.
It's a great moment.
I loved it. It didn't have to retread anything. And then they moved the scene along into this counterpart
which
fighting.
is an even more interesting moment when he fights us. Yeah, that's great.
And the ass comment was funny.
I just think that whole chunk of the film is there's just so, and whether or not like every scene in itself is like really effective or like it moves, you know, or you know, there's moments of like where it's pretty convoluted the way the plot unfolds in that whole second act, but at the same time, like I don't know, the character like when Iron Man runs into his dad, like I really like that
really
scene.
Cool.
It's just like it's like I never thought that this situation could happen, right? So it's like you know the just the situational moment is interesting in itself, let alone like you know the actual. I think the scenes themselves are really well executed and interesting.
And before we move on to that, because that's like the second half of the second act, because we get
I guess we can talk about each plot line. You've got Nebula and
so yeah, we'll go to it was
who was with them? War Machine, right?
And War Machine, and they do their thing, and that was also kind of like what the fuck?
That. I like that they opened with the Guardians opening. Is that actually footage from the opening?
And this is what I need to Google because I didn't get time to Google that. It seemed like they actually reshot a couple like you know you can't have Nebula hit him over the head. That probably didn't happen in the first film.
Yeah.
So there are some things they reshot. Like the thing. Before we went back again, the whole because we were going over and over and over. Me and Colin, when Loki takes the cosmic cube and goes back.
Yeah, there's supposed to be a series with him, right?
Yeah, he's going to be on Disney, and maybe that's where it goes to, or maybe if you go Back to the Future style and remember, because the next time we see Loki in Ragnarok, he has the cube. So I'm thinking, was that like a cool way to go back and see why that was? But regardless, that was the little hole that we kept going on over. And then we cut to the second half of the second act where they go back again, and they take this shot of getting the kill two birds with one stone, getting the Tesseract when it was first taken, and getting Hank Pym's serum.
Which was one of the dumb things about the whole plot line as well, or the whole like traveling back in the future thing.
Yeah.
Is that they could have done that from the beginning. Like they could have gone and got Hank Pym's, and then they could have traveled as many times as they wanted to.
But why would they? They didn't think of it until that happened, and then when they do it, I love.
But that was genuinely something that I thought of like when it first started, where they're talking about how we only have one shot at this, and you're like, wait, what? Like you can probably just go get more. That was very odd, but again, these are all minor complaints.
Yeah.
I really love this movie overall.
And so let me ask you a question. What do you think about de-aging process of CGI? I love that Michael Douglas looked exactly like Michael Douglas did in 1970.
Yeah.
I thought that was amazing.
It's distracting because he doesn't look like that, but the technology is really impressive.
It's so good, because like I don't know if you saw the trailer. We saw the Gemini Man trailer before this movie, and that's Will Smith acting with Will Smith as a kid from Fresh Prince.
Interesting.
but so seeing this, I loved it because I can remember Nick Fury. They de-aged Samuel Jackson too for Captain Marvel, and I thought I loved that. But the scene that maybe because the father scene,
that's
was
a great
really
moment.
emotional.
It's a really interesting scene.
But my scene, because as you all know, I'm Team Cap, always forever.
Is when he sees
the scene where he sees Peggy Carter. That's amazing. Yeah. And I was just sobbing.
It's a great moment.
But it's great.
I actually think this might be, and this is I've always liked Captain America because his movies have been the better of most of them. Yeah, in general, just consistently. Other than maybe the first one. I think from Winter Soldier on, they're all amazing. Yeah, Civil War. But this movie, there was a moment towards the end where I knew that this could have been the moment where he died, where he started duking out with Thanos.
Oh my god!
Where I don't know, just that he's giving it his all, man. Chris Evans is great.
He's
Captain America.
Amazing. It's amazing.
I don't think you could ever really replace that role, and I don't know.
We're coming up to that too.
I don't know. I was just really impressed by how much I cared for his character.
It was so subtle. I mean, of course, all you have to do is watch Captain America: First Avenger to get that. But for us fans who watched Peggy Carter for 2 seasons, we know that she's been pining for him for all her life. The agent Peggy Carter takes place, I think 10 years after First Avenger, and it's like him staring at her. It's like I just love that it was that moment because I was holding around his hand so hard. I said, this is where he's just gonna say, "Fuck it, guys, you go back. I'm staying." But it was heartbreaking, and then cut to you see the scene with Tony and his dad. It was heartbreaking. And then cut to the third act, and then they're back, and they have the stones. They get all their stones, and then
they just whip up another glove that can
and then Iron Man
carry all the stones.
Which
this is the kind of stuff that I get that they don't have time to go to the fucking planet with Mini Giant.
Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, Peter Dinklage and whatnot. I get it. It's not like at the same time, it's like they would just whip up the. It's just there's just definitely some contrived plot devices in this movie, but. Which is one thing that I felt like Infinity War didn't have. I felt like there's a few moments in that movie, but overall I felt like Infinity War was, from a plot standpoint, was much tighter.
It was tighter. It was the Empire Strikes Back of the series. For sure. Definitely. And this movie is kind of like Return of the Jedi.
It's better than that,
No, but I just mean it's a sequel that...
What do you do after?
If Infinity War is an 11, Endgame is like a 9.5, almost 10.
Sure.
But
really solid.
Solid, yeah. And then after that, the Hulk puts on the glove.
They show him in a sling later in the movie. What's the deal with that?
Because same thing happened with Thanos. His hand got all fucked up after that.
Yeah, but he's Hulk. He can regenerate.
He'll regenerate after a while, but it's taking him a little bit longer because it killed these other 2 dudes. It killed Thanos. So you see him and. Now, here's where, again, we talk about a little convolution here. Okay, so it works. He snaps and it works. We assume it didn't, but it does. And then that fucking genius scene with Thanos just decimates, everything. And I thought that was fucking amazing. I was like...
Where are we talking about here?
Well, now we go back. We got the glove. Hulk puts on the glove. He snaps.
Oh, yeah,
but he says it doesn't work. He says it doesn't work, but...
you see the birds,
Ant-Man goes
which
outside,
is the first kind of detail.
And Clint gets his phone from his wife, and so we know it does work. I don't know what Ant-Man saw, but Ant-Man was saying, "Guys, look, it worked." I don't know what he was seeing, but Thanos, Hulk sees Thanos' ship and decimates everything, and then that
which is another great moment, an unexpected moment in that film too.
I literally thought that they all die, and then like Hulk does snap again to go back. I thought that was going to happen. I was like, how did they survive that? Every single one of, I said, okay, Ant-Man shrunk down. Hulk was Hulk. And I was like, well, how did Cap survive? And well, Iron Man has a suit. And I was like, okay, and Rocket, how did Rocket survive? And I was like, all these stupid characters, how did they survive all this? but they survived this decimation. And then, like my boy Blue brought on later on the escape of the glove. Clint gets the glove, brings it back.
Which is funny, kind of the whole cat and mouse scene with the glove is kind of silly, but it's fun.
Exactly. And then we have the ultimate moment where, Thanos sends his minions to get the glove, and then the Trinity comes, the original three come to like duke it out with Thanos.
Which is that was the moment that I thought that Captain America could die.
That was the first time.
It's Iron Man, Thor, and Cap, right?
Cap, yeah. It was Iron Man, Thor, and Cap. And I agree with you. I thought I was like, oh, fuck, actually, he's going to die. This is it,
yeah. I was like, there's a few moments where he knocked him down, and you're like, oh, it's over.
Bludgeoning him, and I was like, oh, no, it can't be this way. Cap, no,
well, and then there's a moment where, like, they show Chris Evans' face. He's just, like, covered in dirt and, like, bleeding. And just, like, there was, I don't know, there's just, the piece of acting that was done there was just brilliant. He's just like, leaving it all on the table.
Correct. And it's like, why I'm teaming Cap? I mean, yes, you have Thor, and Thor gets his ass kicked, and that scene where he punches in the face and the blood starts coming. I was like, oh shit.
Well, and that's the scene where the hammer. So let's get to that. Probably the best moment in the whole film, which is.
Oh yes. My boy Blue said I need a pop with Cap and Mjolnir. So yes, Thor's getting his ass beat. Nice, which I was like, holy shit, I can't believe Thor's gonna die right now again. And then you hear the Mjolnir, it flies. And at first, because Natalie Portman actually came back. I know they said that she wasn't, and she did.
She's in one scene.
She was in one fucking scene. But I know you don't know this. Thor becomes unworthy. And in this film, as you see, he was being very unworthy of anything. He didn't even believe in himself. And what they did in the comic books is that Jane Foster becomes Thor. But you don't know that for the first year. You see a female Thor, and she's like rocking it. She joins the Avengers, the whole nine. And like the big reveal, almost the year is up. At issue 11, you end up seeing her take off the helmet, and it's Jane Foster who is dying of cancer. But the only time she can live is when she puts on the thing. But it speeds up the process of the cancer. So I literally thought that since Natalie Portman actually was in one friggin' scene, that she was actually going to come back as the female Thor. But when it was fucking Cap with that shit, that was amazing. That was fucking. Tell me you didn't shit. I screamed like a girl.
Yeah, it was.
I screamed.
I was pretty. I had a physical reaction to it. I went. Like fuck yeah! Like I couldn't keep the words from coming out of my mouth. Like it was great.
You said you didn't see it in a packed theater. My theater went crazy.
I mean, it was an IMAX theater at 2 a.m. and it was almost full still.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
this theater went ballistic when that shit happened, and it was like everyone was screaming. And when I saw that,
remind me though, because I know that's a setup from like Avengers 2, right?
Yeah, remember when they're playing the game, like who could pick it up?
Yeah, exactly.
And he's like all cocky because no one can do it, and then Cap starts moving it, and he starts getting nervous. Yeah. And it's just amazing scene.
But I think it and don't get me wrong, I'm just curious because I don't know. Can Cap draw it to him as well?
He did, yeah.
Which is why, which is funny because it explains why the shield comes back to him too and everything.
Exactly.
Which is it's almost solving two. It's like the punchline to two bits, which is funny. That's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm that was what they're trying to get across. Is that because I wasn't sure if Thor was trying to pull it.
That's what I thought at first. That's what I thought too. And then you see it's from Cap. And
which is fucking. And then he has the shield
oh my god, the crowd was
awesome.
Wild, as they say. And I was just like, I'm shaking my legs. I'm so excited.
Yeah,
I was like, this was the single greatest scene in cinematic Marvel MCU history. And then it's just Cap and Thanos, and they're going fucking toe to toe. And Cap's putting a hurting on Thanos, but all good things come to an end. He ends up getting his ass, and I love that the shield fucking gets destroyed. I was like, I said,
I know the shield got fucking busted up.
He's like you have a third of it left.
Yeah.
But just like in every movie with Cap, and he says the line over and over again, even though they wasted the line earlier in the movie with the double Cap scene, he just tightens up his fucking thing and gets back up. Mm-hmm. And there's a fucking armada, not counting fucking Thanos, who just almost killed him, but an armada of minions coming to take that fucking that glove, and he's just ready to go at it.
That's the moment where I think they cut to the close up of his face that I was talking about, where he's just like he's been beat to shit.
And he's ready. He's ready to go at it.
And that's a perfect moment.
It is.
For everyone else to show up.
Jerking off on that. Yeah. It was that moment. I was crying. I think
it's a good piece of not only directing but acting and like it's a good construction of scene though, because you've got the characters are at their lowest moment. His shield has been destroyed. We've had this exciting moment with the hammer, but it still isn't enough. And then you pay it off.
And then and then
when the characters are at their lowest point.
It's just, and you know what I love? It's
so
the wide shot.
We're gonna get to Game of Thrones in a bit though, but I want to bookmark that thought though for later, which is when we're talking about my predictions from last week for what's going to happen in Game of Thrones and how it ties in with the fact that you have to pay off your fucking characters. Anyway, we'll get back to that. But
so
that's a great moment.
That wide shot where you see the amount of here and you see Cap, a lone little character before the big reveal at the end. And I thought it was just an amazing scene. And actually, that's when I said, all right, this is the end of Cap. And I was like, at least he goes out like a fucking warrior. You know, he goes out. And then you see, he starts opening up, and the snap worked. Obviously, Hulk was right; it did work, and everyone comes out, and Thanos almost shits himself, even though at the beginning he's kind of, but then he has that evil smile when they all attack.
And they all say, what do they say, like Avengers Assemble or whatever?
Oh my god, when he said that, it's like because in no film has he said Avengers Assemble, and when they all come up to him and he looks around and he's like already he got that face like Avengers, and got that grit teeth. He says Assemble. Oh my god. My theater, I'm glad.
It gives me chills thinking about it.
Yes, the theater went hog shit fucking wild. We all screamed. I was screaming. And
I can't even imagine because I wouldn't say I wouldn't have considered myself a fan of the MCU up until pretty much Thor Ragnarok.
I agree.
And I've liked, I think Civil War happened before that. But Civil War, there's been like a few great movies in there in the bunch where I was like, that's it. Like Civil War is a great movie, and so is Winter Soldier. But like Thor Ragnarok was the one where I was like, I need to go back and watch all the movies again.
Yes.
And so like I can't imagine the excitement that would have, because I remember just like when like you're excited about something and like that pit in your stomach, like when that happened, like just I don't know, my stomach was just like and like I was like fuck yeah, like just like whoa, like I don't even know how to like maintain the excitement. And like I can't imagine though, had I been like a huge fan from the beginning, like what the impact that would have had. So I think that's just a great, I don't know. It's
just an amazing scene.
This movie, you can call it fan service, but I think it's what they've earned that. It's not, it's not, it's not just some throwaway kind of, piece of storytelling. And I think it's great. It's great.
It was an amazing scene. And then we have the final battle, and
which that stuff's okay.
Yeah.
Up until the very end of it.
My boy Blue brought up the football scene where they're all trying to take the gauntlet into the end zone.
Yeah, that's fun.
That was fun. Like
Spider-Man doesn't know everybody's name. This is another great line.
And then here's a hint.
I haven't met you yet. It's nice to meet you.
And I know he doesn't know.
I like your horse. Is that what he says?
Yeah, I like your horse. And then he's like, ah.
Yeah.
But just here's a tidbit, and this is another thing. It's not on the slate, but I already know where it's going. So there's a comic book called A-Force. Captain Marvel's the head of that team. And when all the women come together behind Spider-Man, it was amazing because that's the A-Force with the exception of two characters, She-Hulk and forget the other one. And Colin was like, "Oh, so we already know there's gonna be an A-Force." And I was like, well, Captain Marvel, even though I thought there would be more Avenger movies, but I guess they'll just be, the characters will be in her films, I guess. But yeah, so it basically.
Can we talk about her real quick though, because she has nothing to do in this movie.
I like her hair. I like that short hair that's in the comic book. Yeah, I mean, you know what?
Well, when she said I've got somewhere else to be for a while, I was like, okay, she's going to come back
for a long time. That pissed me off.
Yeah, and then she comes back and just like wipes out all these ships. And it's just like.
Which is what she did. She did that in this film too. It opens, she comes in, saves the day. Then she disappears, comes back, saves the day.
It's just.
But again, the Captain Marvel. I mean,
I feel like she's too powerful. They just don't know how to balance her with everyone else.
There's a character. And
if she can destroy spaceships by just like flying
she's amazing.
Through them.
And that's how we got rid of that shit.
But I also just think like her character is just not that interesting to me. Like we talked about Captain Marvel. Like I enjoyed that movie. Right? It's not like
He's not bashing her because she's a woman, guys. He's got legitimate reasons.
I love Brie Larson. But I think she has nothing to do in these movies. Yeah. Like I don't know. I don't know. They didn't. It's kind of like with Thor. Like she feels like the way that Thor just kind of bland and just.
I didn't really like Thor.
He's a little too powerful as well.
And I agree with you, but
But like then after Dark World, which is another just off. That's one of the worst films, the whole bit, I think. But you know, they when Ragnarok and Avengers and when all that after all those movies, I think he finally kind of settles in.
Yeah.
We'll probably see that with Captain Marvel, but it can't come sooner.
I'm hoping.
Because man, there's just I don't know. Every scene with her is just like she's
but see,
nothing to say or do or.
What I'm gonna say is a reason why, but it's kind of a lazy reason for the MCU. But so here, real quick, I'm gonna go back and digress. There's a character in the Marvel Universe called the Sentry. He was introduced in the late 90s, I want to say. Paul Jenkins, Jay Lee, John Romita Jr., and then later on Jay Lee. Basically, he's the Superman character of the MCU. And the reason why we never heard of him before until the 90s is we find out that he was this like ultimate superhero that can kill, nothing can hurt or anything. So why they got rid of this character, we find out that the Fantastic Four, Mr. Fantastic, and the Illuminati, Professor X, erased everyone's memory of him because of the fact that he had this like parasite demon feeding off him. So he was good, and there was a thing that was bad. So the Sentry, what they're doing now is kind of like what the Sentry came back during the Civil War, then he went away, and then he came back. It's like you're getting rid of the character because you say, well, this
otherwise
character,
it's just
it's like there's no movie. She comes, takes all the bad guys, says, all right, guys, bye. And they're like, oh, okay, you took care of everything. And I feel that's what they're doing with Captain Marvel. And only when you see her movies, her standalone films, you'll get a nice gist of how she works. But in this setting, like she came and she started kicking her, this guy's ass. And
then Thanos dropped the stone on her.
Yeah. That was a cool scene where he just pulled out the
That was actually pretty fun, yeah.
Put it back on.
It's nice to see a woman get hit.
Uh-oh.
It's terrible. It's a joke of people.
But then the end of the film happens.
You shouldn't say things like that.
So Cap, everyone's fighting, Gauntlet, and then, I don't know if you want to get into the final thing.
What else did?
No, then that's it. There's this big fight for the Gauntlet.
Now, so what? Well, I guess have they announced? They already announced Phase 4. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm curious though. I'm wondering. We're running out of time though because it's already
No.
at least an hour and a half
Just
in.
ask the question. I'll tell you. Yes.
Well, so what do you think? Adam Warlock is the next, the
Why he
initial
wasn't in
start of
this
the next
film-
phase?
Why he wasn't in this film? I don't know why.
Well, because they've set him up to be in the next Guardians. movie.
Guardians.
So I think that's where it'll
Correct.
be.
And Guardians will be there. Remember, that's what I was talking to some guy at the comic shop.
Is that the
today.
list here? Let me see.
Yeah. So I was talking to a guy today, and he was saying that he should have been in this film, but if not, he'll definitely be in Guardians. But if you look at the list, he's very far away from where he should be. Now,
Yeah, he wouldn't. So if by that rationale, he wouldn't be introduced for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 movies.
7 movies, and that's why I don't think that
it's like
order
3
is
or 4
100%.
years from now.
Yeah, I think they just drew out the list and not give you an order.
Okay, we got to talk about this shit. This is too interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
So Black Widow, what's
So
that?
that's the thing. It's a prequel film.
Okay,
So now that we know that she's
I'm on board with that.
yeah,
that sounds
and
great.
Because remember, he was like, "Oh, I never knew my father's
She's
name."
dead. In case you've seen, spoilers. And so Eternals is like an Eternal. Thanos is an Eternal, right?
No, but it's in that story.
Jeff Bridges is,
So-
or is it Kurt Russell's? What's his name's dad?
Ego,
The planet.
Ego is
an
an
Eternal, right?
And the Eternals are like God, like ultimate gods of the universe.
So are they going to do so they're doing a movie called The Eternals. What's that going to be?
So
This is me
I'll
being
be honest now.
ignorant.
Here's
too.
one of the reasons why I said, "What the fuck are they doing?" Angelina Jolie got cast. She's the lead actress in Eternals, so that's
Okay.
why they're pushing forward with it. But basically, the Eternal sets up the cosmic universe, the Watcher, Galactus.
Well, I think they're trying to set up the next mega villain, though. Is probably what it's going to be, or like.
But the Eternals are like heroes, but they're gods.
Yeah, but
And
because you have like, isn't Death one of them or something? Isn't there like what?
No, Death was why Thanos in the comic.
Yeah,
book
in
did
the
all
comics,
this.
why he did all of
But
it.
but she's not an Eternal.
Not Eternal. Okay.
So
they're all good guys.
Yes, and then the people who run them, like the new gods, like Ego and all these people, they try to use them for evil, and that's what happened. Like the Eternals and break away from that. Like we're not your puppets, and then
Interesting.
they do that cosmic, political, outside universe, the Watcher shit, and then Inhumans.
So how are you going to do a movie with them all?
So the Inhumans, I don't think that can be, because if they're going to make a movie in the Inhumans, the TV show flopped. Now Doctor Strange is another film.
Yeah, talking to Mike.
Shang-Chi, I mean, again, I'm not racist, guys, but I'm just saying Shang-Chi's such a low-level Z character of the 70s who was like supposed to be like the Bruce Lee of the Marvel Universe. And I know that right now the Asian American cinema is trying to get a resurgence, and that's fine, but I mean, they're going to have to get a lot of great writers to write a good Shang-Chi movie for people to go see it. Then you got Black Panther 2, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, then another Ant-Man, then Captain Marvel 2. And then you got, and this is what I don't understand, why is Silver Surfer before Fantastic Four unless Galactus is introduced within the Eternals, the Inhumans, or Guardians of the Galaxy? And then Silver Surfer would come first. I don't know why. Nova is what I thought was going to be introduced in this film because they killed the Nova Corps. But when he snapped it back, that means they came back to life. So Nova should have been in this. The Power Pack, that's going to be like a kid MCU movie. But there's a lot of cool characters in Power Pack. And then the last three are the big ones, which is Fantastic Four, Spider-Man Secret Wars, which I've been waiting for billions of years.
There he is. He's back on the mic.
Who? But I'm sorry, were they going away? And then this last one I showed Colin. We talked about this in 2005 and 2009. The Dark Avengers is one of the greatest storylines in Marvel Universe, and I can't wait to see how they pull that off. But it makes sense because one of the main characters of the Dark Avengers has a lot to do with Spider-Man. So the fact that Spider-Man goes before, I can't wait to see what they do with the Dark Avengers.
Spider-Man Coming Home or whatever it's called?
Far From Home.
Far From Home. I genuinely think that's going to be. Maybe it's not, but and now that we've seen Endgame, maybe I thought it was going to be a prequel to Endgame.
That's what a lot of people are saying that.
And maybe it won't be.
And the only reason why I say you might be right is because
I think
Nick Fury was at the funeral, but it doesn't necessarily mean he met him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's like in this film, he's like, "Oh, hi, Spider-Man, nice meeting you." In the trailer of Far From Home. So I'm kind of like I agree with you, but they said that now we know that everybody's back. This is what happens after.
I mean, I hope that it progresses the next phase. I don't know.
It's supposed to be Far From Home was the tail end of Phase 3. That's the last movie in Phase 3, and then all these other movies are Phase 4.
I would love for them to just slow this shit down though, because we're gonna get one every year for the next 20 years, and it's like I feel like we're gonna. I don't know. I feel like it's. We're talking about this now, and like at first I was like, "Oh, that looks interesting. That looks interesting." And then I'm going, "Oh wait, we're going to get 2 of these a year," and like just the villains. Imagine like I don't know, like this. There's no way they can maintain the stakes.
Yeah.
For that many movies after setting up Thanos and doing Endgame, that's going to be challenging. I don't know.
I mean, yeah.
And maybe they've got enough money and they've got the best talent in the world working on all this stuff. So who knows? But I think we're.
I'll tell you right now, if they desperately need good writers for a lot of these films. I'm not impressed by this at all. I mean, of course, Black Widow, Black Panther, Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man, Captain Marvel, those sell themselves. Spider-Man. If they don't have a good writer for Eternals, I'm afraid that might be the beginning of the end of the MCU. I'll be honest. Because Eternals is a tough grab. It's like, it's very, like Jack Kirby-esque, like where it's a lot of talking about a lot of story. And it's like, kids are going to see these movies because they just saw a movie where it's like a battle at the end that end all be all battles. And then you're going to have a movie where they talk a lot. Who's going to really want to see that?
I don't know, though. So, I mean, you certainly could be right? But we also, it could be time for more self-contained movies, though, like Black Widow or something like that, where it's
that's
just...
going to be okay. That people go, oh, yes.
Well, that can have action, though, because that doesn't,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, Black Widow will be fine. If that comes out in, I think they said this comes out in, like, next year in February, March, whatever, that's fine. And then Eternals, what, the summer? Inhumans? I'm trying to look at Doctor Strange. These are all, like, okay, I mean, Shang-Chi will have action.
I could care less about another Doctor Strange movie.
But that's what I'm saying. I know you did. Like, it's not an action-driven film.
I like him in the Avengers. I could care less about.
But then this is what I'm saying. If you see, like, my friend just texted, he said, "Oh, it's not official." And I'm like, okay, if it's not official, that's fine because I don't understand why they're putting these heavy, story-driven, talky films in front of action like Black Panther.
They'll find a way to do something. I mean, but it could, who knows? It could be a departure from what we're used to, and that could be a good thing or a bad thing. Who knows? It's hard to say this early in the game where all we have is a title.
I'll accept that. I'll allow it.
We'll see. Let's get to Game of Thrones.
Let's get to GOT.
Overall, Endgame's great.
I love Endgame.
It's great.
I cried.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if it's not on my top 10.
You don't cry, right?
No, I didn't.
No, good.
I felt like a little bit of welling up, a little bit of emotion. I'm not heartless.
It's like I think it was.
I think most of it was for Captain America,
Spider-Man
though. I never. I mean, I think Iron Man is really well developed in this movie.
Yeah.
I think his motivation makes sense. I love the stuff with his dad, but I don't care about him the way I do Captain America.
Agreed, and that's
Thor.
why I feel
think
bad.
those are the two my two
I
favorites.
feel bad that I was all set to be devastated after this film because I thought Cap was going to be the one to go.
Yep.
And when it was Iron Man, I kind of like, I mean, now he won't be making appearances, which kind of sucks. But I mean, I wasn't invested in him as I was Cap.
Yeah.
Cap is my man.
Well, he's kind of an asshole. And that doesn't mean that like I'll be disappointed to not have him in like the main movies again. I mean,
he was like I enjoyed him in Spider-Man cameos, but other than that, he's not necessary. And if that lineup is 100%, it's no big deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but just real quick, what you think about the passing of the torch, so to say?
I wish it had gone a Winter Soldier, honestly.
Now here you go, and
but I do like Falcon, right? What's his name?
The Falcon. So here it goes. In the comic book, Bucky is first, and he does it for a year, and then Sam Wilson takes it for 3 years or 4 years, and Old Man Cap is introduced at the tail end of that. But I actually like that they gave Cap this satisfying life.
Oh, I really like that.
I love that.
It reminds me of Inception, actually.
Interesting.
That moment where we had our time together.
Was amazing. Even though that had to be CGI, but it was amazing how they did that. He literally looked like an old man, like his old self.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
No, I love that moment. There's a few questions about that Red Letter Media brought up about like what would happen if with all the Avengers stuff when that happens in that timeline. Did he just sit around and do nothing?
But Sam Wilson, the Falcon, says that he was like, he goes, I'm kind of not going to be used to having no Captain America in this, And I thought it was kind of weird that he said that. I was like, did all of a sudden your memories just zoop and there was no Captain America? You know what I mean?
No, I don't think I don't know that was what they were going for.
But then what I'm saying is what I told my nephew. Then what he did was Captain America created the alternate universe. He created another universe where he lived his life away from everything. He came back.
So that timeline will continue going on.
Exactly. Like if we see. Here, we all go back to the Future too, where Doc Brown does.
What's weird about though is the whole aging thing. Though, would he age if he came back into the timeline? Yes, he would.
Yeah,
because some of the time travel stuff doesn't make logical sense. Probably,
he went from
but
1942 to from 2000, so that's 40 years. You're right. So that's the only reason why he didn't age. Even though if you read the comics, the Super Soldier Serum slows his aging process.
Yeah.
But
that's why it's like, how long was he in there that he aged that much?
Well, remember 1942. So from 1942,
so he lived another 60
till
years.
2000, it's current time. So
yes,
that's why he would be old. Yeah, it would make sense. I mean,
yeah, I bought it. It's fine. I'm not worried about the logistics. I like that ending.
I like the end where he's dancing with Peggy.
I love
my
that.
My sister just called me because she wants to talk about it. Well, I'll talk about it after we end this thing. But let's go to GOT.
Game of Thrones. It starts in like 20. Starts now. Unfortunately,
you'll catch it tonight.
Yeah, I won't watch it right when I get home anyway. So
tomorrow with Rhonda.
Game of Thrones. This is season 8, episode 3.
Well, wait, you want to talk about episode 2 first before we talk about episode 3?
Well, we're not talking about. Yeah, we're not. 3 has not been released yet.
You want to talk about what's going to happen tonight?
Well, let's talk about what's happened in the first 2 episodes because we haven't.
Episode 1 was.
We haven't talked about either of them.
Yeah, we haven't, right? Because it's been.
Yeah, we gave our predictions last week, and there were a few notes I had about because I actually listened to that discussion.
I know everything about.
One is that we call it the whole episode because I hadn't seen Game of Thrones in a year and a half. We called Bran the whole time, which it's Bran by the way.
Like Brandon.
The other thing is, it's only 6 episodes, not 8.
Okay,
which I did not know.
Well, tonight's episode's 90 minutes. So.
Yeah, they're all longer episodes, so there's not as much Game of Thrones as I thought we'd get.
Yeah.
We talked about
tonight's a big battle. Tonight's the battle to end all battles.
It's gonna be great. I'm just saying, what I mean is, I thought I was really content with having 8 episodes, and so when I found out there were only 6, I was a little disappointed.
Yeah.
After talking about how excited I was that they were only doing 8, now I'm a little disappointed that they're not doing 8. But anyway, that's just to kind of to correct some of the things we talked about last week, in case anybody ever listens to this.
I thought it was 8 too. I didn't even know it was still 6.
Yeah.
All right.
The other thing is, so I mean, what happened? I forget what happened in episode 1. I mean,
Yeah, I'm trying. Well, I know it ended where Jamie Lannister goes to sneak in there to like live his life all quiet, like, and then the first person to see him is the person they started the whole show together.
what happened before that?
So okay, so we have her being there. Danny
Who's
gets
her?
there with John.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Danny arrives
Her?
at Winterfell with John, and Sansa. No one digs on her. Everyone's like, "You ain't the queen of the throne," because John's supposed to be, and everyone's kind of like standoffish her. And there's a nice little scene where, Daenerys, and I'll get into that next because I already know what's going to happen. Daenerys is kind of like, "Oh well, bow down to me," and Sansa's like, "Yeah, well, nah, not really." And it was, and then
That was in
time,
this episode, I thought.
well, no,
I know there was
in
tension
this
was
episode, They
there.
confronted each other.
Yeah. Okay.
In the first episode, it kept like being left like, "Oh, something's happening," and so it's like,
Episode 1's where they go on the dragons and shit. I forgot. I remember how it ended, but and some of the things.
But the ending was good because they do the dragon. They show that they're together. He finds out about the prophecy that Danny is his aunt, and he's kind of like, and then Tarly finds out that Danny killed his mom and dad, his brother and his father.
That's right. That happened.
So
in
he's
episode
already
1.
a little angry. But it ends where Jamie sneaks into Winterfell and gets over his horse, takes things, kind of like, "Oh, I made it," and turns around, Bran staring at him like, "Hey, asshole, we started this whole show. We're gonna end it."
So there was a tweet that said like there's some great Bran tweets and memes in general, but one of them was like who keeps leaving Bran lying around in a wheelchair around Winterfell, like just placing him in places where he can look at people. And the other one was somebody posted, this is a tweet, it said Cersei worried about Dick and Jon and Dany going on dates, Night King and 4. It's like that's great. Anyway, but yeah, so then like Bran says, we don't have time to talk about this. One of your dragons is dead. And then they go on a date on dragons, which is really stupid.
Then episode 2 opens with, which I thought why worked so well.
I liked episode 1 though. People are bitching
episode
about.
Episode 1 was good. It introduced everybody back together.
Overall, I think it's a great kind of it's a reunion episode / laying the foundation for what's to come in this season, and so is this next episode. So they've really and what's great about this is going back to like what we're talking about with Endgame, which is that they've given all these characters time, so we know where they're at. We've I don't know. There's people that I even forgot have ever run into each other in the show that are like, and I can't give you an example right now off the top of my head, but like where you're like, oh yeah, fuck, I forgot that these two know each other and that's relevant. So it's a great time. This is a good time before all the action starts for us to do all that, because now they can just fight and they've set up, they've set up the foundation for all these characters again.
And this is amazing,
especially the ones we haven't seen in forever, like Gendry or some of these guys.
And what I loved about this is like, it starts off and like not I'm not saying tongue in cheek and joking or self-referential, but it starts off like, all right, well, we're in for a long haul. We're just sitting here waiting. And then it's almost like an Altman piece, like Robert Altman. You get stories where people are doing this and they're doing that, and it's just really good story. It's not action. It's nothing. It's just fucking great characters interacting, great acting, great, like the song, Jenny's song is a great song. Arya, everybody went crazy over Arya having sex with Gendry. And it's funny because someone brought it up perfect. They were like, when
Gendry, right? Is that right?
Gendry. Yeah,
I think so,
that's his name. But here's somebody brought this up to me, and they were like, it all began where Robert Baratheon wanted Ned Stark to bridge the houses by putting Joffrey and Sansa together, and in the end, they ended up doing that anyway, but with Arya and Gendry. And I thought it was amazing. And here's a little tidbit. Then we end, of course, right when Danny and Jon get to it, and Jon says, "Listen, I'm the head of the throne. Not that I want it, but I'm just letting you know I'm the head." And this is what I'm telling my sister, because my sister like loves Daenerys. And I'm like, let me tell you something. Her and her father are the same person. And her to be the Mad King, she's going to be the Mad Queen because, and it's true, here's the point. You're supposed to be in love with this dude, and all she's worrying about is him saying, you're going to still bow down to me, right? I'm still the queen. It's not like, oh my God, I can't believe this.
I think it can be interpreted that way. But I also think it could, some of it though is that she's been working she's imagine living, how many years has it been since...
I want to say a good 5-6 years.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So her entire motivation is that she deserves this, right? For this whole time. And now she's finding out that that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
So there's some conflict there, right? Now, I think they're setting that up to be this big thing, which it's an important aspect, certainly.
I'll give you my predictions.
But I do think that Jon Snow is going to step down from his title and allow Daenerys to rule and sacrifice himself for Daenerys. And he may even keep it to himself. I don't think that'll happen for the sake of drama.
I'll tell you this, because first off, there's only 4 people who know about it.
Yeah, Bran.
That's Bran, Tarly, Jon, and Daenerys.
So you think she kills the 4 of them somehow?
No, I think that it's going to be. We talk about our predictions for Endgame, how it should have ended. I think it's got to be 2 things. Dany goes mad with power, and Jon has to kill her, or Dany kills Jon, and then someone else. Like it's the beginning of the Mad King, where someone kills Dany. But I think that the madness that was in her father, that was in her brother too. Her brother was batshit crazy too. I think it's going to come out in her, and it's going to everything that everyone fears, like Sansa, Arya, and everyone who don't trust her.
If that happens, the Night King wins in 4.
And let's get to that before we get to the ending, because let me tell you something. So
if that happens in this, like in the next 2 episodes, if Dany starts to turn in that direction, I think the Night King wipes everyone out. I think Dany they self destruct, and the Night King wipes them out.
And let me tell you something.
My brother somebody had a theory that the Night King's gonna. The reason that we haven't seen him in the army is that he's going to King's Landing.
He's going to King's Landing. Now we don't see him at the end. And we know that there's going to be
also be going in the crypts, which is the other theory.
Well, we already know that, because why would
valid.
You send all the helpless people to where all the dead people are? And I thought that was amazing. Yeah. But there's 2 things I want to say about that, because that was the one thing I was going to say, that I know that
those people are dying tonight for sure. So the Night King could be there as well. So I don't know necessarily that he's in King's Landing, but
I think he is.
He could just be in the crypts. But King's Landing would make a lot of sense.
It would make sense.
Cersei gets wiped out without knowing it.
He's a tactician. But again,
and then he just surrounds.
Here's a little behind the scenes thing. And also a tidbit to later. So here's the thing. I just saw a YouTube video, and they're talking about major characters that changed during the course of the show. And when they went up to the original Night King, who looked more regal and royal, they said they ended up casting an actor who looked a lot like the actor of Bronn. And everyone's saying that when you see it, that's why people say, "Oh, it is Bronn. You can tell it's Bronn." And they said that they cast him that way. So they definitely are going that way. And even Bran says it when he goes, "I think he can see what I see. He knows what I." So it's already setting it up that Bran and the Night King are one of the same.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm saying this. That's why I think, and we said this last week when we talked 2 weeks ago. I think in the end, it's going to be where the Night King wins. It has to be, because Dany and Jon, that self-destruction. Cersei, if she doesn't get fucking killed, I'll smack everybody in the world. Even Jaime wants her dead. Her lover brother. It's. And I think that's what's going to happen, because when we didn't see the Night King in the beginning, I was like, ooh, that motherfucker, he went to King's Landing. And then I was watching a show, they said, I think he went to King's Landing. That would be perfect. Where the 2 battles. We're going to see the battle at Winterfell, but we're going to have the big reveal where he's also at King's Landing, which if they do that.
But that could also be how they end this episode.
Yes,
you can
the
crypts happen, all that shit happens. Everything goes down at Winterfell. They try and
then they're like, "Where's the Night King?"
But
and
the
then
other thing is they're trying to
King's
bait.
Landing.
The only other thing though is that Bran, I feel like, but it may be because he's aware. Because he's aware that the Night King is himself. That they have this whole plan that he's going to bait the Night King, and then it turns out that's not the case.
He says that. Remember, he says, "I want to, I'll put my name."
Exactly.
No, don't do it. But again,
he's the one that set up that plan, so that could be potentially.
Yes, and I can't wait to see that scene, because when we do see that scene, it's going to be like Fight Club. It's going to be where we find out that Ed Norton and Brad Pitt are the same person.
Because I think that's how you'd end the episode. This episode, I think, if you do it that way.
I think it should be ending in episode. If this is episode 3, I think 4 should be the Battle of King's Landing. And episode 5, because you have to have them.
Well, I agree, but that's how you do it, though. So what you do is at the end of this episode, I don't know if Bran does it, but Theon gets slaughtered somehow, and we find out that Bran isn't good, right? And that his whole, if this is what's going to happen, that his plan, he was aware that the Night King was going to go to King's Landing or whatever. The only other thing though is. And the interesting detail, I think it was on Reddit, somebody said that all these people were talking about how we're going to die tomorrow, and the only person that didn't say that is Tyrion, who had just spoken with Bran. And that's because we didn't see that conversation happen all off screen.
Yeah.
And that's like a character dying off screen. It's like there's got to be a reason for that.
Yeah,
that's too subtle to
interesting.
You know. So I do think Tyrion's aware of something that we don't know yet in reference to the conversation that he had with Bran. And so because of that, it makes me think that this Winterfell fight might go their way.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting. I mean, I can't fucking wait.
Maybe the only thing that I think that makes sense is because even though Bran is playing like, I'm cool, I'm not going to kill Jaime, but I think that if his evil alter ego is the one who says this bitch is the one who started this whole fucking mess, and I'm going to kill her first at nightfall, and it'd be a great battle to see in episode 4. But we'll see because I'm very excited to see, because like now that you've seen 6 episodes, it would make sense that the Battle of Winterfell, the Battle of King's Landing, the big reveal, and then the final episode. I mean, that's how it should go. I mean, don't you think?
We'll see. I don't know. I mean, the problem is I think the only thing I know is going to happen is the Crips are going to come alive and murder everyone. Yeah, like that. Tilly's dead. All these like minor characters.
Kind of fucked up,
yeah, but like, they're all gone. You know, that's done. Tyrion, I think, is going to be there, but I don't think he'll die. I think he's the one that will somehow turn it in their favor or whatever.
Yeah. He's smart. He's a smart guy.
Yeah, he's too. I don't think he dies this episode, but I could be wrong. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows, bro?
This is a tough weekend, man.
That's what they said. Major characters
are
all going to die this weekend. Yeah, that's true.
Endgame.
Endgame, a whole bunch of people died, and this movie, a whole bunch of people going to die, and.
But it'll be great.
Next time we meet, we have a lot more to talk about. That's for sure.
Yeah, because I don't know. There's not going to be a bunch of movies coming out in the next 2 weeks, probably.
But this one down the list.
It's like kind of a dry period. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything even remotely worth watching. I don't know. I'll look that up once we're done here. But I mean, that pretty much wraps it up. I mean, as far as the specific, we could go into more specifics on Game of Thrones. But I think overall we've shared our thoughts in the last couple episodes, and I'm super fucking excited to get home and watch it as soon as I can. So. Anyway, that's Indecisive Cinema, episode 27.
27. So
go like us and subscribe and do all the things. Leave us some reviews. Let us know what you think about the show if you're listening, and let us know what you want. If there's any ideas you'd have for what we could do differently, or what we could, other than Carlos talking to the mic. I get it. I get it. I can't help it.
Strap it around me like this.
Yep. There we go.
Feedback.
But yeah.
All right, well, you guys take care. We'll see you in 2 weeks, and this is episode 27 for Carlos Hernandez.
I'm Jeremy Knight.
You guys take care. Bye.